Chapter 1052. Seeing that everyone was cheering, Tang Jing smiled and waved the tickets in his hand. Hurry up and get your tickets. Otherwise, there will be a lot of people going in later. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted by the tickets and they all rushed over to get their tickets. Tang Jing walked towards the entrance. With the VIP tickets, they did not need to queue up and could directly enter through the VIP entrance. Hence, the few of them swaggered towards the VIP entrance. Sinosaurus raised his head like a proud rooster and chuckled. We can finally enjoy the VIP treatment. Third bro, if you have the chance in the future, bring us along more often. Don't enjoy it alone. Tang Zhang's head moved. Since he had already taught them magic, they were naturally considered to be on the same side. Hence, for their future development, he could bring them to many occasions. It could be considered as them adapting to society in advance, which was very beneficial for them. In this way, their starting point in the future would be much higher than the average person. Alright, I'll bring you guys along next time. You're a good brother. The few of them came to the entrance and the ticketing staff politely checked their tickets. The group entered the stadium and immediately saw the VIP area with the best seats. When they found their seats, they found that they were actually the VIP of the VIP. Their seats were definitely the best of the best. The few of them subconsciously looked at Tang Jing. His ability was too brilliant to be able to get such a good seat. Of course, these seats were not far from the stage. Whether it was the sound or the visual effects, they felt that this trip was not in vain. When the audience in the other VIP areas saw them, they were all suspicious. It seemed that they did not expect these people to get the best seats. However, among them, Fang Shishir and Yi Dingdang attracted a lot of attention. After all, beautiful women would be the center of attention no matter where they went. The few guys sat and whispered as they waited for the concert to start. Boss, there's news on the internet that Park Shi-hoon's concert has been cancelled. Is this your plan to take drastic measures? Feng Yong asked with a smile. The others raised their eyebrows. Obviously, they were also attracted and asked, yeah, third bro, what's the drastic measures you mentioned last time? Why are you being so mysterious? Thus, Tang Jing decided not to hide it anymore and said, Fatty, you guessed it right. That's my plan. Isn't Park Shi-hoon trying to use the concert to attract more people? I won't let him have his way and cancel his concert. Naturally, all his plans will fall apart. Everyone's eyes lit up, and they all gave him a thumbs up, praising, brilliant, this is brilliant. For these so-called stars, beating them up is not as good as venting our anger. In this way, they will no longer have the qualifications to be high and mighty. They can only scram back to their Korea. This kind of person's level is too low. If you keep competing with him, you'll be praising him instead. Teach him a lesson and he'll know how strong you are. Tang Jing said lightly. If Park Si-hoon was a cultivator and not an ordinary person, he would definitely not let him off so easily. Most importantly, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. If Tang Jing used his full strength, it would be like an adult bullying a child. He didn't need to do so. Actually, this was also because he recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra every day. The killing intent in his heart had mostly dissipated, and he became calmer. This is third being benevolent. If it was me, I would have beaten him up long ago. Let's see if those fans still like him. Sinosaurus said with righteous indignation. Feng Yong also nodded in agreement, boss is benevolent. He's lucky this time. If he still doesn't know how to tuck his tail between his legs, I'll teach him a lesson. Zhou Yan had the opposite opinion and stood together with Tang Jing, saying, third is the mature one. You guys are too impulsive. This Park Si-hoon is despicable, but he still has a company behind him. He has his own interest group. There's no need to fight to the death. The few of them still wanted to argue, but Tang Jing immediately changed the topic. As night fell, the capital stadium was filled to the brim. In the darkness, countless fluorescent sticks and supporting signs lit up. Not only were there girls in the audience, there were also quite a few boys. Clearly, Tang Linger's influence among the boys was very significant. The lights on the stage gradually dimmed. Everyone immediately quieted down and held their breaths. They stretched their necks and looked at the center of the stage. A dot of light lit up above the stage. Starlight. A ray of starlight lit up in the darkness, like the morning star in the night sky. Soon, more and more starlight lit up, flickering like fairies blinking their eyes. The starlight dotted the night sky, as if it was filled with stars. Suddenly, a white dress appeared in the starry sky. It grew from small to large, from far to near, like a fairy dancing above the river of stars. She really was dancing in the starry sky. Her graceful dance was so beautiful that it was suffocating. She moved gracefully, like a swimming dragon. Her footsteps were light and graceful. Her voice was like an orchid's. Each and every one of them was beautiful and moving. Words that only existed in myths and legends to describe fairies popped out from the depths of their minds. The audience was mesmerized. The lights gradually shone on Tang Linger's body. She descended from the sky, like a fairy descending from the Milky Way. She brought with her a fairy-like aura like a breeze. Her singing voice rang out, and her red lips parted. The ethereal and melodious voice entered everyone's mind. It was as if it had a magical power, causing their souls to tremble. The word moving was not enough to describe this feeling. Their spirits seemed to have left their bodies and floated into the air, enjoying the scene. Tang Jing stared blankly at Linger on the stage. He did not expect that Linger on the stage would be so different from the rest. At this moment, no one present could compare to her radiance. Although Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishir did not lose to Linger in terms of beauty, at this moment, Linger's charm still far overshadowed theirs. Many people closed their eyes when they heard the last part of the song. They enjoyed the sound and the lyrics, and their spirits gained a great sense of satisfaction. When the song ended, the lights lit up. The entire stadium was silent. No one applauded or cheered. This was because everyone was immersed in the beautiful mood outlined by Linger's song. The sound lingered in the air for 3 days. Perhaps this was the experience. Paw! A soft applause rang out. It was as if a fuse had been lit. Thunderous applause immediately rang out and swept through the entire stadium. Cheers rose and fell, as if they were going to rush into the sky. A fairy descending to the mortal world. It's so moving. It's heavenly music. It's definitely heavenly music. Yes, the live effect is too shocking. It's a million times better than listening to the recording. Of course, the recording was already very moving, but this is true perfection. The audience boiled over. The praises and applause blended together and lasted for a long time. Sinosaurus and the others almost went crazy. They clutched their chests and looked deeply impressed. They said excitedly, "This trip was worth it. This trip was worth it. After listening to this concert, other concerts will be tasteless in the future." The others nodded in agreement. Tang Linger's gaze turned towards the VIP area. Although she could not see clearly, she knew that her master was looking at her. Everything she had today was given to her by her master. The person she wanted to sing for the most was her master. She thought silently in her heart. The corners of her mouth could not help but curl up slightly, revealing a faint smile. There is a beauty in the north, peerless and independent. One smile can topple a city, and another smile can topple a country. This faint smile immediately let the audience understand the true meaning of this poem. Immediately, they became even crazier, as if they were drunk. The song rang out again. All the noise immediately disappeared, turning into silence. Everyone was immersed in the mood created by the song. This concert was very different from other concerts. Every time Tang Linger's voice rang out, it accurately captured the hearts and minds of the audience. Therefore, no one screamed, no one made a racket, and no one sang their own voice. The only thing they did was listen. This was the essence of a concert. Listening to the singer's song and experiencing the beautiful mood created by the song. Tang Linger's performance was extremely high. There wasn't a single flaw in her performance. Her continuous singing moved every single audience member. Especially when the backup dancers came on stage, the song and dance merged into one, raising the mood to a whole new level. Time passed by minute, and the concert gradually reached its climax. Under the spotlight, Tang Linger said softly, "The next song is a new song. It's a song I've been preparing for a long time. I want to sing it for one person, because without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. Everything I have was given to me by him. He is the most important person in this world. He is my everything." These words were very gentle, like a mountain stream flowing through people's hearts. However, it set off a huge wave in everyone's hearts. Because these words were too much like a confession. That he must be a man. Who is this man? Can he win Tang Linger's heart? A big question mark appeared in everyone's mind, but no one was angry. There was only envy from the bottom of their hearts, and blessings. Who is that person? Someone asked loudly, "Is he here today?" Tang Linger smiled faintly and said, "He's here." As she said that, she couldn't help but look in the direction of Tang Jing. The lights also swished to the area. Suddenly, everyone in the area was illuminated by the lights. Everyone looked at each other. They really didn't know who she was talking about. "Lao-san, could it be you?" Sinosaurus exclaimed, then quickly lowered his voice and stared at Tang Jing in disbelief. Everyone else also fixed their eyes on him. They saw that he was not surprised at all. He didn't even have much of a reaction. Tang Jing was very clear about his important position in Linger's heart. If it weren't for him, perhaps Linger would always be that ginseng, with no chance to transform into a human. Chapter 1053. Tang Jing gave a noncommittal smile and looked at Linger from afar. Their eyes met, and Linger's smile became sweeter and sweeter, as if it could melt one's heart. When the audience saw this smile, it was as warm as a spring breeze. Of course, more people's eyes were focused on Tang Jing's area, but there were too many people and they were too far away, so they couldn't see clearly. The music started again, and the ethereal singing spread throughout the venue in an instant. Suddenly, a sword appeared in Linger's hand. Wow! Many people were shocked, not knowing what she was going to do. Swoosh! The sword drew an arc in the air. Linger seemed to have become one with the sword, and the sword danced beautifully. As she sang, she danced with the sword, and the dance and song merged into one, complementing each other. Especially when she danced with the sword, her figure was valiant and elegant, like a fairy dancing with a sword in the sky. She looked carefree and intoxicated. Wow, she can even dance with a sword. She seems to be very skilled. She's an all-rounder. What can she not do? The audience cried out in surprise. At this moment, Linger was completely different from her usual weak and delicate self. The impression she gave people was too deep. Linger sang and danced, and used this method to express her friendship with Tang Jing. Tang Jing understood, and a myriad of emotions welled up in his heart. Without a doubt, the concert reached its climax at this moment. The audience's eyes followed Linger's elegant figure. Suddenly, she tiptoed and soared into the air. With a light flick of her wrist, she turned into a dazzling sword flower in the air. The audience thought that she was using pressure, but in reality, there was nothing on her. She was relying on her own strength. Without a doubt, this sword dance in the air was intoxicating. She slowly descended, and the singing stopped abruptly at this moment. The audience seemed to have woken up from a dream, and finally cheered loudly. Suddenly, a fiery light blossomed from the stage. It was exceptionally dazzling. Many people still subconsciously thought it was a stage effect, but the scorching heat wave had already shot up to the sky. The audience in front of them were directly pushed to the ground by the heat wave. Amidst the fiery light, Tang Ling was completely surrounded. Everyone suddenly understood. Explosion. The stage actually exploded. Tang Ling was in danger. This was the only thought that appeared in everyone's minds, but they were powerless to do anything about it. Despair immediately appeared in their eyes, and screams rang out. Many people subconsciously covered their eyes, and many people widened their eyes as they watched this scene in disbelief. But some people reacted very quickly. The moment the flames soared into the sky, Tang Jing realized that something was wrong. The pungent smell of the explosion entered his nose, and immediately stimulated his cerebral cortex. Without thinking, he reacted. His body and mind moved at the same time. With a whoosh, he disappeared from his seat. The tip of his foot lightly tapped on the chair, and like a startled swan, he flew into the sky and rushed to the stage. The audience didn't even have time to notice this person who suddenly appeared. They only saw a ball of flames covering the large stage. This song was a solo performance by Tang Ling, and there were no other dancers. When Tang Jing rushed to the stage, he saw Ling in the flames. She was like a phoenix, reborn from nirvana in the flames. She waved her long sword, trying to build a barrier to protect herself. However, her power was not enough to resist such a strong explosion. The barrier built by the long sword collapsed in an instant, and the blast immediately hit her body. She was like a beautiful butterfly, but was unable to block the storm, and was in an extremely dangerous situation. Linger! Tang Jing cried out hoarsely. Tang Linger suddenly raised her head and saw Tang Jing. The flames shone on his cheeks, making him look very mighty, as if he came on fire in clouds. At this moment, her heart seemed to have been hit hard, and a crack appeared. Then, this scene and the image of Tang Jing were completely engraved in the deepest part of her heart. In the blink of an eye, he flew in front of Tang Linger. With a big hand, he tightly hugged her waist and pulled her into his arms. The two of them were so close together that they could even feel each other's fierce heartbeat. Boom! At this moment, all the energy of the explosion was completely released, drowning the two of them. The flames soared into the sky, and the stage was destroyed. It completely collapsed. Screams and screams resounded through the sky, as if the roof of the stadium was about to be lifted off. In the eyes of the audience, Tang Linger and the stage were destroyed. Everyone had the same thought in their minds: God was jealous of beauty. The most beautiful thing in the world was indeed easily envied by God. She was gone just like that. A heartache and despair instantly occupied everyone's hearts, as if tearing their bodies and minds apart. In the explosion, only the audience in the middle of the front row was affected. Several people's chairs were pushed down and they fell to the ground, but they were not injured. Fang Shishir and the others were also among this group of people who were affected, but a few of them did not scream. After all, they were people who had experienced big waves. Although this change was sudden, their psychological quality was still strong. Among the audience, perhaps only they noticed that Tang Jing rushed to the stage at the critical moment. Looking at the stage that had been blown into ruins, several people immediately had an ominous premonition in their hearts. This was a bomb attack. Linger and Tang Jing were in danger. They hurriedly wanted to rush to the rescue, but suddenly, in the flames, two figures soared into the sky. Their speed was faster than the flames of the explosion. In the blink of an eye, they were at the top of the stadium, completely avoiding the attack of the flames. Looking at this scene, as well as the burning flames and dancing figures, 8 words appeared in everyone's mind: Phoenix Nirvana, rebirth from the flames. Tang Ling was truly like a phoenix in the 9 heavens, reborn from the flames. At this moment, the beauty and charm she bloomed captured the hearts of everyone present. It was deeply imprinted in their hearts, impossible to forget. Many people would never forget this scene even if they grew old. There was no doubt that this was a unique concert that left an extremely deep impression. The audience, who had been in despair, seemed to have been reborn. Their bodies were injected with a clear spring, and all their spirit and energy recovered. They stared at the two people in the air with burning eyes and cheered deafeningly. Of course, many people's eyes were firmly fixed on the man who was holding Tang Ling tightly. He had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and was awe-inspiring. He was like an ancient war god, with a soul-stirring charm. Many girls' eyes bloomed with light. The image of Prince Charming in their hearts completely overlapped with this person, and was deeply fixed in their hearts. For those in the know, this explosion was no doubt a bomb attack. But for those in the audience who didn't know, other than the initial panic, they saw Tang Ling fly high into the air. Furthermore, her height was far beyond what a normal person could fly. So, many people guessed that this scene must be a stage effect. It was to shock the audience. Tang Ling and that man must have been bound with pressure. Therefore, the panic immediately dissipated by a lot. Many of the audience members stood up, but they did not run to the exit in a panic. Of course, if Tang Ling did not appear, panic would have immediately occupied everyone's hearts and caused irreparable bad consequences. The fire had disappeared, and the stage was in ruins. The two people slowly landed on the stage. On the dark scorched earth, the image of the two people was completely different from the surrounding environment. Even their clothes were not dirty or messy, creating a strong contrast. The thought from just now came up again. This was the true rebirth of a phoenix, a rebirth from the fire. There was no doubt that Tang Ling was this phoenix. After this battle, she became even more beautiful and moving. Aimee's heart was about to jump out of her chest. Like the other staff members, she knew that this was an explosion and definitely not a stage effect. However, they were all shocked and stupefied. Everyone subconsciously wanted to dodge, but when they saw that the explosion was limited to the stage and did not spread to the side, they forcibly stopped the urge to run away. Aimee actually rushed to the stage without a care for his own safety. When he stood at the edge of the stage, he just happened to see the two people descending from the sky. His body froze and his expression froze. Linger is actually fine. When he saw the person next to him, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. With him here, how could anything happen to Linger? In the past, he already had an extremely deep impression of his boss's mysteriousness and power. At this moment, this impression was even deeper and had undergone a tremendous change. However, he could no longer find an accurate adjective to describe him. After racking his brain, he could only think of one word: God. Because this was the only word that could describe him. However, he still anxiously wanted to rush up and get the two people out of this place. As soon as he took a step forward, he was stopped by Tang Zhang's gaze. He subconsciously stopped his footsteps. He did not understand Tang Zhang's meaning, but he still chose to believe Tang Zhang without hesitation. Tang Zhang was very angry. His eyes burned with a raging anger, as if he had merged into one with the remaining flames around him. He knew better than many people that this was a bomb attack and not a stage effect. Who was so vicious as to want to harm Linger? If he had not coincidentally come to this concert, if he had not been so close to the stage, then with Linger's cultivation, even if she was not killed by the explosion, she would definitely have been seriously injured. Linger was his family, so this kind of injury was like it was on his body. If the enemy wanted to deal with him, he would just hold up his sword and meet the attack. However, if the enemy wanted to deal with the people around him, then his anger would definitely be beyond measure, because the enemy had already touched his reverse scale. Tang Linger was one of his reverse scales. His mind quickly turned, one figure after another flashed through his mind, trying to figure out who arranged this attack. Lord. 100 change Star Lord. Yi Mansion. Chapter 1054. Although he had guessed so many people behind the scenes, Tang Jing did not immediately flare up. Since the other party had done such a thing, they must have run away long ago and would not stay at the scene. Therefore, it was useless to get angry now. What he should think about now was how to end the concert so that it would not be a mess. Although it had already been messed up, it could not develop in a worse direction. This was Linger's first concert, so it was very important. Linger, do the last few movements and complete your sword dance. Tang Jing whispered in Linger's ear. Although Linger didn't understand what he meant, she still did as she was told. With the last few moves of the sword dance, the performance came to an end. Immediately, the audience burst into thunderous applause. At this point, all the audience had forgotten their worries and panic. They believed that this was the stage effect of the organizers and did not associate it with a bomb attack. This was truly a unique performance. Since ancient times, there had never been such a scene on the surface. It was ingenious and unique. Suddenly, the audience was boiling. The cheers were thunderous and rushed into the sky. That's great. I was scared just now. I thought it was an explosion attack. I was so scared that I had a heart attack. Yes, me too. So this is the stage effect. Only Tang Linger would dare to create such a stage effect. She is really a fairy. No one can guess. This must be a method they have tried many times, so you are all worried for nothing. If they dare to do this, they naturally have the confidence, but the effect is definitely good. What's the name of this song? I didn't hear what she said just now. Everyone looked at Tang Linger. Tang Jing had already regained his composure and said, "This song is called Nirvana. I hope everyone likes it." In fact, her sword dance and song did not have a name. This was a last-minute idea, but it was the name that was most in line with the effect of the scene and her state of mind. Throughout her journey, she was the best synonym for Nirvana. From a ginseng to a human form, and now, she was a celebrity. Every step she took was not easy. It was as if she was going through a raging inferno. Finally, in this explosion, she completed the final step, bathing in fire and nirvana. Hearing this name, everyone felt that it was too appropriate. It was exactly the same as what they thought when they watched the performance. Nirvana, this name is too fitting. That's right, it's already too wonderful. It fits perfectly with the performance just now. I dare say that this will definitely become a concert. It is destined to be remembered by people. We are witnesses to a miracle. We are so lucky. This trip was not in vain. Everyone was discussing animatedly, and Tang Jing naturally heard the gist of it. Only then did he feel relieved. This concert did not turn into a mess because of the explosion. Instead, because of the ingenious countermeasures of the two, the concert was pushed to a climax. This could be considered a blessing in disguise. Of course, Tang Jing definitely did not think that this was a good thing. The mastermind behind this must pay a painful price. No matter who it was, he would not let them go. This is the end of the concert. Tang Jing reminded them in a low voice. The stage had been turned into ruins, and the atmosphere had reached the climax. There was no need to continue. Moreover, the concert was already nearing its end. At this time, it stopped abruptly. The aftertaste was endless, leaving more room for imagination for the audience. Tang Linger took a few steps forward and closed the distance between her and the audience. Tang Jing quietly retreated into the darkness behind the scenes. Tang Linger said a few sincere closing words, and then the concert ended with cheers and applause. Tang Zhang's time on the stage was very short, and many people's attention was attracted by the explosion just now. In addition, the distance was relatively far, so most people did not see Tang Zhang's face clearly. Seeing him quietly come down, many people subconsciously thought that he was the person that Tang Linger was talking about. But seeing him quietly come down, they all thought that he was a staff member of the dance team and did not investigate further. Tang Zhang's appearance was short-lived and did not attract much attention, but for Sinosaurus and the others, it was extremely shocking. They instantly confirmed that Tang Zhang was the person that Tang Linger was talking about. Immediately, all kinds of feelings welled up in their hearts. They looked at each other and whispered to each other, Lao San is really hiding too deep. It turns out that his relationship with Tang Linger is so unusual. No wonder he can get such a precious VIP ticket. The others nodded. Lao San is not honest. We will interrogate him later. Do you think that was really a stage effect just now? The few of them were silent for a while before saying, although it seems so, my intuition is definitely not simple. Let's go backstage and see if Lao San needs any help. They reached an agreement and avoided the other people who were leaving the stage and walked backstage, but they were stopped at the door. From afar, they saw Tang Zhang with a livid face and was asking something. Their hearts thumped, and they immediately understood that their guess was right. It really was not a stage effect, but a real explosion. Who would want to attack Tang Linger? How could someone do such a vicious thing to such a beautiful girl? It was simply crazy. They were extremely angry and waved at Tang Zhang from afar. Tang Zhang turned his head and glanced at them, signaling the staff to let them go. The few of them rushed forward and asked, Lao San, what happened? Yi Dingdang and Fang Shishi's attention was on Tang Zhang. They touched Tang Zhang's body and asked with concern, are you hurt? Tang Zhang shook his head and said, I'm fine. Linger is also fine. This is a blessing in disguise. Someone wants to harm Linger. I've already asked AI me to check the surveillance. We must find out who is behind this. Fang Shishi was extremely worried. She lowered her voice and asked, could it be the High Lord? Tang Zhang did not comment because he did not know the specific answer. He had made many enemies since his debut, and as long as it was someone with a certain level of strength, it would not be difficult to investigate his relationship with Tang Linger. If they could not deal with him, it was not impossible for them to turn around and deal with Tang Linger. Tang Linger held on to Tang Zhang's arm. There was not much panic on her face. Instead, there was a sweet smile on her lips. Their attention was immediately attracted to her. They stared at the two of them holding hands. Sinosaurus could not help but ask, Lao San, what is your relationship with Tang Linger? She's my sister. Tang Zhang said lightly. The few of them looked at each other and slapped their heads. They suddenly realized and said, that's right. You're both surnamed Tang. We should have thought of this long ago. So you're siblings. Lao San, you hit it well. You actually didn't tell us that you have such a female celebrity sister. Tang Zhang's face darkened. His eyes flashed with a cold light and he did not have any intention of continuing. Zhou Yan observed the situation and immediately noticed Tang Zhang's reaction. He touched Sinosaurus's shoulder and motioned for him to speak less. At this time, Aimi hurriedly ran over with a notebook in her hand. She shouted from afar, Boss, we've analyzed the surveillance footage and found out that someone deliberately placed the bomb under the stage. We were negligent in our work and did not notice it. Tang Jing did not comment. He coldly watched the surveillance video on the computer. It showed a thin man wearing a baseball cap carrying a luggage bag into the staff area. Then, he quietly went under the stage and placed the luggage bag in a dark corner under the stage. There was no doubt that the source of the explosion was this luggage bag. This person was wearing a hat the whole time. He was very vigilant. The surveillance did not capture his face, so we don't know who he is. Amy said dejectedly. Her heart was very sullen and her anger was ready to move. If he knew who it was, he would definitely want to kill the other party. The other party's intentions were too vicious. Looking at the figure methodically and unhurriedly doing everything and safely leaving, his eyes were about to burst into flames. The bomb was right below where Tang Linger was standing. If it wasn't for Tang Linger's cultivation and timely reaction, coupled with Tang Jing sitting in front of her and saving her in time, it would have led to a disaster. Another very important point was that the strength of the bomb was not enough. Otherwise, even if he was there, he would not be able to save her. At that time, not only would it hurt Tang Linger, but it would also affect the audience in the front row. At that time, there would be a lot of casualties and it would be an important place in the capital. The consequences would definitely be very frightening. Tang Jing stared at the figure, his eyes slightly narrowed into slits. This person was thin and tall, like a bamboo pole. Which force sent this person? For a moment, he couldn't guess. Boss, should we call the police? Amy asked worriedly. Tang Jing thought about it and shook his head to refuse. No need. There was no wall in the world that didn't have a crack. If they called the police, the explosion attack would definitely be leaked. At that time, all the work they had done before would be in vain, and this concert would be ruined. Even Tang Linger's Star Road could be considered to have come to an end, because in the future, no one would dare to take the risk of being bombed to see her concert. Tang Jing would never allow such a situation to happen. This is the effect of the show that you have rehearsed long ago, understand? Tang Jing stared at Amy and asked coldly. Amy was not stupid. After being in the entertainment industry for so many years, she had long been a smart person. With a thought, she immediately understood Tang Jing's intention. She couldn't help but sigh at the boss's power. A bomb attack could be averted just like that, and it could also add fuel to the fire, making Tang Linger's fame even more famous. Amy nodded quickly. Understood, boss, don't worry, no one will ever say half a word, let alone let the media know and damage Linger's reputation. Tang Jing remained calm and continued to stare at the figure. He had already competed with the other party. If he didn't see the other party's origin, he would not give up. This person is like a bamboo pole, he doesn't look like an assassin. Aren't assassins all big and tall? Do Long muttered to himself in confusion. Chapter 1055. No wonder he felt a sense of déjà vu. The word bamboo pole reminded him and he immediately recognized the person. His eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light as he gritted his teeth and said, "It's Park Si-hoon." Park Si-hoon. Everyone was stunned as their eyeballs fell to the ground. They stared at the screen in disbelief as they tried to recall the person in their memories. Sure enough, the more they looked at it, the more they found it to be Park Si-hoon. Fong Shishir and Yi Ding-dang had a deep impression of this person and said in unison, "Yes, it's him." Everyone else nodded in agreement as they were filled with righteous indignation. Sinosaurus fiercely punched the pillar beside him and said fiercely, "He's so vicious. If we knew that he would do this, we wouldn't have let him off that day. Let's go and find him. We must catch this kind of person." Feng Yong was also furious. Zhou Yan looked at Tang Jing and asked, "Third brother, what are you going to do?" Tang Jing clenched his fists tightly. Without a doubt, this incident was caused by him. Linger almost became a sacrifice, so it was inevitable for him to blame himself. I will definitely take revenge for this. After Tang Jing finished speaking, he turned around and left. Brother, where are you going? Tang Linger hurriedly held on to his hand. Tang Jing looked at her gently as he stroked her hair and said gently, Linger, your singing today was great. You must be tired. Go back and rest, I'll go and vent your anger for you. Tang Linger nodded and said unwillingly, Brother, can you accompany Linger? Tang Zhang's heart softened. After experiencing the incident, although she looked calm on the surface, as if she wasn't affected, she was in fact greatly affected. He could only nod and say, all right, I'll send you home. Tang Linger's face immediately lit up with joy as she held Tang Zhang's hand even tighter. You guys go back first. Don't spread the news about this matter. Since Park Si-hoon dared to do such a thing, I will definitely make him regret being born into this world. Looking at Tang Zhang's gaze, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They knew that Park Si-hoon was in deep trouble. No one thought that he was pitiful. On the contrary, they thought that he had only himself to blame. His actions had incurred the wrath of both man and God. No matter how they dealt with him, it would not be excessive. Everyone left the stadium one after another. There were still many spectators outside the stadium who hadn't left yet. They were discussing this unprecedented concert, and the response was excellent. Sinosaurus and the others took the bus back to school, while Tang Zhang and the others drove back home. With no one else around, Fang Shishir finally asked, what are you going to do with that person? This kind of immoral person with a heart as poisonous as a scorpion naturally cannot remain in this world. Tang Jing said. Fang Shishir's eyelids twitched. She glanced at Tang Linger and said, this person's actions are truly too vile. He must be taught a harsh lesson. Tang Linger looked up at Tang Jing and said, Master, I don't even know this person. Why did he attack me with a bomb? Once there was no one else around, Linger automatically changed the way she addressed Tang Jing. This was a question that had been lingering in her heart, and she finally asked it now. Tang Zhang's face revealed a guilty expression. He held Linger's hand and said, Linger, this is all my fault for implicating you. I promise that this will never happen again. Linger hurriedly shook her head and said, you are Linger's master. How can you say such things? No matter what master does, Linger will never blame master. Moreover, this is definitely because that person is too evil, so master can't be blamed. The few of them returned to the villa. Tang Jing accompanied Linger and chatted for a while. He watched her fall asleep before leaving the room. Everyone else sat in the living room and looked at him. Yi Dingdang couldn't hold it in and asked first, what are you going to do? Tang Zhang's face instantly darkened. A cold light flashed in his eyes and he said, this kind of person can't be tolerated. You want to kill him? Fang Shishir asked. Tang Zhang raised his eyebrows and asked, can't I? This person is a celebrity after all. If he were to die an unnatural death, he would gain countless good reputations. This would be letting him off too easily. What does he value the most? With his own influence, just killing him would be giving him a quick death. Fang Shishir analyzed methodically. Tang Zhang looked at him in confusion and asked, then how do you want to deal with him? Fang Shishir said without hesitation, let him lose his reputation and then pay the price he deserves. Tang Jing declined to comment. Fang Shishir advised, although it's not enough for him to die 100 times, but if you only kill him and dirty your hands, we will think of another way to make him suffer a fate worse than death. What way? Tang Jing asked. Fang Shishir thought for a while and said, there is always a way, as long as we try hard to think of it. Tang Jing firmly shook his head and said, there is no need to be so complicated. To deal with this kind of person, if you spend too much time thinking of various methods, then you are really thinking highly of him. He is just a Korean stick, he does not have the qualifications to make me spend so much effort. The simplest and most effective method is to destroy his body. Do you really want to kill him? Fang Shishir asked worriedly. Tang Jing nodded affirmatively. Marshall, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly stood up and said, I will go with you. After listening to the experience of this concert, Marshall's heart was also filled with anger. She was usually a decisive person, so she said resolutely, kill this kind of person, there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will do it. Yi Dingdang nodded in agreement. Back then on campus, I was very unhappy with him. Since he is this kind of scum, he deserves to die. Alright, you guys decide. Fang Shishir did not insist. Let's go. Tang Jing signaled to Marshall and left the house with large strides, completely blending into the darkness of the night. Park Shi-hoon had already moved, but he had long been targeted by Tang Jing. No matter where he moved, he could not escape his eyes. Therefore, Tang Jing and Marshall easily found his new residence. It was a 5-star hotel, and he and his team lived in a luxurious suite. However, he lived alone in a suite. Tang Jing and Marshall quietly broke through the door. The living room was empty, and the bedroom door was wide open, with the sound of heavy breathing coming out. Tang Jing and Marshall looked at each other, and immediately understood what was going on. Marshall's cheeks flashed with a hint of red, and she whispered, this person is too shameless. Tang Jing snorted, and thought to himself, what is this? I just saw a live broadcast a few days ago. When he walked into the bedroom, he saw 2 naked people on the huge TV screen. When he took a closer look, he saw that one of them was Park Si-hoon, and the other was an unfamiliar girl. However, she looked extremely young. The 2 people who were in the middle of a fierce battle did not notice that someone had entered, and were still exercising while talking. The girl in this video is too young. The last time I came to Huaxia, she took the initiative to come to my hotel and offer her body. She is still underage. Park Shi-hoon said loudly as if he was showing off. Jean Meiji smiled and said, if it wasn't for your great charm, then these little girls would all recommend themselves to sleep with you. That is their honor. But I'm afraid even in their dreams, they would never have thought that their actions would be recorded by you. Only this way can I have an endless aftertaste. I have already collected quite a few, and I am really liking this place more and more. Not only can I make a lot of money, but I can also enjoy so many beauties. Didn't you say you were going to deal with Tang Linger? How come you didn't do anything tonight and only focused on this matter? What do you mean I didn't do anything? I finished long ago. When we finish this matter, the news will definitely be out. At that time, we can enjoy my masterpiece together. Park Shi-hoon said proudly. He spent a lot of effort to obtain the bomb, and then carefully placed it below the stage, and quickly left. His mood was both excited and nervous, but more than that, it was the excitement of his scheme succeeding. He couldn't help but imagine the scene of Tang Linger being blown up into the sky. He felt that it would definitely be wonderful. It was precisely because he was looking forward to such a scene that his heart was unable to contain his excitement. That was why he directly pushed Jean Meiji down on the bed to do some exercise to relieve the tension. After the battle ended, he would then go and admire the results of his battle. Jean Meiji looked at him suspiciously and asked, what did you do? I blew Tang Linger up into the sky. Park Shi-hoon said with a sinister expression. What? You used explosives. Is there a problem? This is the capital of Huaxia, what if the police investigate? Jean Meiji said worriedly. Park Shi-hoon was full of confidence and said nonchalantly, how will the police investigate? Everything will be blown to ashes, and not even a speck will be left. What's there to be afraid of? I'm just afraid of what if. There's no what if. If you don't believe in my strength, I will teach you a lesson. Park Sher-hoon said as he suddenly increased the intensity of his movements. At this moment, Jean Meiji could only gasp for breath and said intermittently, "Why are you so ferocious this time?" "I've always been this ferocious." Park Shi-hoon's eyes lit up and did not even blink when he lied. He grabbed her neck with his hands and veins popped out on his forehead. His cheeks were flushed red, making him look extremely ferocious. "This daddy will let you know how powerful I am." Tang Zhang and Marshall looked at the two of them who were intensely exercising with indifference. Suddenly, Jean Meiji saw Tang Zhang and Marshall at the door from the corner of her eyes. She was so frightened that she screamed. The emotions that she had been accumulating suddenly collapsed and her face turned pale as she screamed, "There's someone here." Park Sher-hoon immediately turned his head and saw Tang Zhang and Marshall at the door. He was instantly frightened out of his wits and blurted out, "Why are you guys here?" Tang Zhang coldly snorted and said, "Do you really think that your plan is flawless?" "What do you mean?" Park Sher-hoon asked, still in shock. "If you don't want others to know, then don't do it. So you're actually a scumbag with a human face but a beast heart. You actually came to Huaxia to deceive our girls. Your beastly behavior ends here." Tang Jing grabbed his hair and dragged him down from Jean Meiji's body like a dead dog. Chapter 1056. Park Sher-hoon was like a stray dog as he curled up into a ball. Looking at Tang Jing with a guilty conscience, he timidly asked, "You trespassed into my room. I want to sue you." Tang Jing sneered, "You dare to complain first. Have you forgotten what you've done?" "What have I done?" Park Sher-hoon asked with a guilty conscience. "If you don't want anyone to know, then don't do it in the first place." "I don't understand what you're talking about. I heard everything you said earlier. Furthermore, what you did in the gymnasium was also recorded by the surveillance camera." Tang Jing coldly said. "You're framing me." Park Shi-hoon's heart was pounding. He guessed that the bomb must have been detonated, but he had no idea what the outcome was. However, he guessed that the effect must have been great, which was why Tang Jing was in such a hurry to find him. But it was a pity that he was seen through by the other party, which made him feel a deep sense of defeat. However, he did not decide to admit defeat. Instead, he gradually regained his composure and raised his head with a disdainful smile. "Do you think it's me just because you say so? What evidence do you have?" "The evidence is what you said earlier." "Are you still trying to quibble?" Do you think the police will believe you?" Park Sher-hoon sneered. "Police?" Tang Jing snorted, "Do you think that I will hand you over to the police? You're too naive. What can you do to me if I don't hand you over to the police? Let me tell you, I have a powerful international team of lawyers. I can get out of this in minutes and even sue you. At that time, who knows who will be the unlucky one?" Park Sher-hoon arrogantly said. "A despicable and unscrupulous person like you actually came to Yenching University to study. You're simply an insult to this prestigious school. Since you're still trying to quibble, then I won't talk nonsense with you. I'll make you pay for your actions." Tang Jing indifferently said as he approached the other party. "What are you trying to do?" Park Sher-hoon cried out in fright. "Don't you like to bring harm to our Chinese girls? I will make you pay the price." Tang Jing pulled him up and pressed his finger on his Enchanting acupoint. His whole body suddenly trembled, and his expression changed from fear to malevolence. Then, his eyes widened like a hungry wolf. With a howl, he directly pounced on the cowering Jean Meiji on the bed. "Ah, what do you want?" Jean Meiji shrieked as she looked at the ferocious Park Sher-hoon. It was as if he had turned into another person, a beast. Park Sher-hoon didn't reply. His pupils dilated as everything in front of him changed. His consciousness was still clear, but his body was not under the control of his consciousness. Instead, it was controlled by an extremely strong impulse. He was very frightened, but there was nothing he could do. There was only one impulse in his heart, to release his most primitive instinct. Moreover, the intensity of this impulse was unprecedented, penetrating deep into his bones and nerves. He did not know what had happened to his body, but there was no doubt that it was Tang Zheng's doing. He couldn't even say a word as his body and mind were completely dominated by this impulse. He pushed Jean Meiji down without any restraint and merged into one amidst her terrified screams. Then, the room resounded with the sound of an intense battle. Tang Zheng and Marshall retreated out of the bedroom. Marshall looked at Tang Zheng suspiciously and asked, "You're not going to kill him?" Tang Zheng coldly laughed, "Do you think that's possible? He deserved to die. If I don't kill him, should I wait for him to come and kill me?" But Shishi's reminder is reasonable. Not only do I have to kill him, but I also have to destroy his reputation. This is the true revenge. Don't look at how cool he is now. In fact, he is like a machine that will never stop, unless he falls down. What do you mean? I cast a small spell on his body. This spell was something that I found from the demon god. I originally did not plan to use it because it was rather vicious. However, to deal with this kind of person with a human face and a beast heart, this spell is the most suitable. What is the use of this spell? Marshall curiously asked. This spell can summon a person's most primal instincts, and it can be magnified. Then, it will appear in his body, and he will become like this. Jean Meiji will become a tool for him to vent. Then, he will not stop until he dies of exhaustion. Die of exhaustion. Marshall's heart trembled as he immediately understood what Tang Zheng meant. For this kind of person with a human face and a beast heart, this kind of punishment was undoubtedly the most suitable. Then he will also die. Yes, he will not live past tonight. Then what about Jean Meiji? This kind of woman who betrays her country for glory deserves to die. However, whether or not she can survive will depend on her luck. Tang Zheng said without any pity. Later, we will make a phone call and tell the reporters the room number. They will definitely be happy to report this kind of thing, and Park Shi-hun's heroic deeds will naturally be exposed. This kind of person's true face will also be exposed to everyone. This is more useful than simply killing him. Tang Zheng added. Marshall's eyes lit up as he nodded in agreement. The two of them left the hotel and did not continue to enjoy the intense battle. At the same time, the internet was in an uproar. News of Tang Linger's concert quickly made it to the front page of every major news portal. It even became a hot topic on Weibo. Everyone was discussing the concert. Of course, what people were talking about was her ethereal voice and the enjoyment of listening to it. All the audience felt that this concert was really worth it. In addition, the most eye-catching thing was the carefully arranged Phoenix Nirvana at the end. Especially under the guidance of a certain amount of public opinion, most of the audience believed that it was a pre-arranged stage effect and was definitely not an accident. Although there were a few opposing opinions, they were quickly drowned out by the overwhelming majority of voices. After that, no one questioned the matter anymore. Instead, they were all in awe. They were all in awe of Tang Linger and her team's courage and adventurous spirit. Because of this concert, Tang Linger's fame had truly increased once again. She wasn't inferior to those popular superstars now, and had attracted even more fans. Park Shi-hun probably did not expect that his carefully planned attack would become an opportunity for Tang Linger to increase her fame. Instead, it was a blessing in disguise for her. At the first glimmer of dawn, many entertainment reporters received news that Park Shi-hun was staying in a certain suite in a certain hotel. The reporters had a keen sense of smell and immediately connected it to the topic of Park Shi-hun and Tang Linger's concert some time ago. Since Tang Linger's concert was so successful and Park Shi-hun's concert was cancelled at the last minute, it was natural that they could interview Park Shi-hun and see his reaction. This was also a very good entry point for their report. Hence, when they found out where Park Sher-hoon was staying, they all sneaked into the hotel. When they arrived at the corresponding room, they noticed that the door was unlocked. With a gentle push, the door opened. Reporters loved breaking news. Since the other party didn't even lock the door, they would naturally sneak in openly. When they saw the two naked people lying on the bed, which were none other than Park Si-hoon and his assistant, Kim Mi-ji, the sound of snapping photos rang out non-stop. No matter what, they couldn't go wrong in recording this scene. This was breaking news that would definitely make people's eyeballs pop out. Although there were already indecent videos of Park Sher-hoon and Kim Mi-ji on the internet a few days ago, they never expected that the two of them would not know how to restrain themselves and get together again. Now that so many reporters had taken photos, there was no way for him to deny it. He would definitely fall into a whirlpool of criticism. However, this wasn't the problem that the reporters were worried about. They just wanted to report and record the hot news, and this scene happened to fulfill all of the conditions. Seeing that the two of them did not have any reaction despite the huge commotion, the reporters looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Could it be that the two of them were so magnanimous that they wanted them to take photos as much as they wanted? But after taking photos of all positions, there was nothing else to take. Hence, it was time to wake the two of them up. Park Sher-hoon, wake up. Someone pushed Park Si-hoon's shoulder. All of a sudden, Park Sher-hoon slipped and flipped over from Kim Mi-ji's side. He raised his head with a ferocious expression. His eyes were wide open and his face was ashen. He looked like a ferocious ghost. "Ah!" The reporters finally screamed. Seeing this scene, even a fool could understand what was going on. Some of them were bold enough to test Park Si-hoon's heartbeat, only to find that his chest was cold. There wasn't any heartbeat at all. "He's dead." Everyone looked at each other, their expressions changing at the same time. "How did he die? Look at his lower body." Someone pointed at Park Si-hoon's lower body. Everyone looked over and saw that his lower body was covered in blood. Even the naked Kim Mi-ji's lower body was covered in blood. The bedsheet was dyed red with blood. What's going on? Who knows? Ah! Suddenly, Kim Mi-ji sat up straight on the bed. Her hair was messy and her face was dirty. She looked like a lunatic. Everyone was shocked by this scene and screamed because everyone subconsciously thought that she was dead. They didn't expect her to still be alive. Click, click, click. The sound of camera shutters rang out as they recorded this unbelievable and horrifying moment. Thereafter, everyone surrounded Jean Mi-ji and impatiently asked, "Miss Jean, may I ask what's your relationship with Park Si-hoon? Are you lovers?" "Yes, how did Park Sher-hoon die?" Looking at the group of heads in front of her, Kim Mi-ji's face became blank. She tilted her head and looked at the reporters blankly for a while. Then, like a walking corpse, she walked to the door naked. Chapter 1057. Seeing Jean Mi-ji's abnormal reaction, the reporters looked at each other in dismay. In the end, one of them weakly said, "She seems to have gone crazy." The others nodded their heads. There was a big difference between a normal person and a lunatic. Immediately, everyone became more interested in what happened last night. A few reporters did not give up and chased after Jean Mi-ji. They stopped her and asked, "Miss Jean, may I ask what happened last night?" Jean Mi-ji looked at him blankly and then directly bumped into him. Seeing her covered in blood, although she was naked, there was no beauty in it. Instead, it made people want to vomit. That reporter was so scared that he screamed and hurriedly retreated. Of course, this farce did not last long. Some reporters had already called the police. When the police arrived, they found that the scene had already been messed up by the reporters. They could not find any useful clues. Even the hotel surveillance camera did not capture anything unusual. In the end, they could only leave it as it was. However, the reporters published what they had seen and heard on various major media outlets. Although they did not make up any lies, just what they had seen and heard gave the public a lot of room for imagination. Many people filled in the details in their imaginations. The most common guess was that Park Seo-hoon was unable to satisfy his greed. In the end, his body was hollowed out and he died of exhaustion. Park Seo-hoon's remaining fame instantly collapsed. All of his fans turned against him. No one dared to say that they were his fans. Many people secretly scolded themselves for being blind. There were even more people who ran to Park Seo-hoon's Weibo to curse him. Early in the morning, Tang Jing was still in bed when he was forcefully dragged out of bed. Yi Ding-dang impatiently pointed at the phone screen and asked, "Look, what is this?" Tang Jing glanced at it and said without any surprise, "He deserved it." Seeing his indifferent reaction, Yi Ding-dang did not give up and said, "Why is your reaction so calm? Is there a need to be surprised?" Tang Jing asked back. Yi Ding-dang looked at him with a strange expression and said, "You and Marshall went out for so long last night. I didn't even know when you came back. What did you guys do? Don't tell me that it has nothing to do with this matter." Tang Jing shrugged and smiled faintly. "Since you've already guessed it, then I don't need to say more." The corners of Yi Ding-dang's mouth gradually blossomed into a smile as she planted a kiss on Tang Jing's cheek and said, "This is the kind of man I like. To deal with a big bad guy like Park Seo-hoon, one should use thunderous methods." What was the point of being soft-hearted? Although Seo is kind-hearted, being too soft-hearted is not a good thing. Seo is mainly kind-hearted, Tang Jing explained. "Of course I know, but I can't do it. Hee, what you're doing is really satisfying." When the two of them walked out of the room, everyone looked over. Naturally, they also saw the news and started cheering. Even Fong Seo was no exception. This was because the media reported that Park Seo-hoon had tricked Hwa Xia into shooting that kind of indecent video. This touched Fong Seo's bottom line. "Tang Jing, I'm sorry. I didn't expect Park Seo-hoon to be such a person yesterday, so I said those words." Fong Seo said shyly. Tang Jing stroked her hair and said, "Don't take it to heart. This is nothing." Fong Seo sighed in relief and said, "This kind of person shouldn't be alive in this world. What you did was to get rid of love for the people and prevent other innocent girls from falling into his hands." Tang Linger rubbed her sleepy eyes and walked out. Seeing the room full of people, she lazily said, "You guys woke up so early." Yi Ding-dang impatiently pulled Tang Linger and talked about Park Seo-hoon's fate. After Tang Linger finished listening, she stared blankly at Tang Jing and asked, "Master, did you do all this for Linger?" Tang Jing smiled and said, "This person deserved it. This kind of thing won't happen again." Linger was touched and threw herself into Tang Jing's embrace. She hugged him tightly and buried her head in his chest, sobbing, "Master is too good to Linger." The others immediately fell silent. They looked at each other and suddenly realized something. In the past, they all treated Tang Linger as a little girl. In fact, she was just a kind and innocent girl. She was already a beautiful young lady and was the goddess in countless people's hearts. Her charm was unquestionable. Her relationship with Tang Jing was very special, but now it seemed to be developing in another direction. It was just that they didn't realize it. The few of them saw the worry in each other's eyes, but they didn't mention it. In any case, they all thought of the same thing. Would she also become Tang Jing's confidant? The few of them felt a sense of crisis at the same time. Cough, cough. Yi Ding-dang couldn't help but let out a dry cough, as if to remind the two of them. Tang Jing looked at her in confusion, not knowing what was going on. Sure, if anything happens in the future, Sister Ding-dang can also protect you. Yi Dingdang pulled Tang Linger out of Tang Zhang's embrace. Tang Linger's eyes were still filled with tears. She gently nodded and said, "With Master's protection, Linger is not afraid at all." Tang Jing saw that their expressions were a bit abnormal and wanted to ask them clearly. He patted Linger's shoulder and said, "Linger, you and Sister Shishir go out and buy some breakfast." Fong Shishir understood tacitly and quickly took Tang Linger out. Tang Jing curiously looked at the few people who stayed behind and asked, "Why are your expressions so strange? What happened?" Yi Dingdang anxiously asked, "Tang Jing, what is the relationship between you and Linger?" Brother and sister relationship. You've always treated her as a sister. Tang Zhang said in confusion, not understanding what they meant. Brother and sister relationship. Have you asked Linger what she thinks? Marshall could not help but interject. It was obvious that the reactions of the few women were not much different from each other regarding this topic. She is just an ignorant little girl. What else can she think? Tang Jing shrugged and said disapprovingly. Yi Dingdang curled her lips and said, "Little girl. What kind of look is that? She is already a girl and is no different from other girls. She is just more beautiful. Her thoughts are not much different from other girls. Do you know what this means?" Tang Jing shook his head. Are you pretending not to understand or do you really not understand? Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I really don't understand. There's no need to pretend. Yi Dingdang and Marshall looked at each other and said at the same time, Linger likes you. What? How is that possible? Tang Jing seemed to have his tail stepped on as he shouted. What's impossible about that? She's already a big girl. Don't tell me she doesn't like people. Moreover, we don't need to say what kind of image you have in her heart. You are usually so smart, don't tell me you haven't thought of this point. Yi Dingdang asked aggressively. Tang Zhang had never thought of this point. In his impression, Linger had always been like a child who had not grown up. In all honesty, he really did not have any thoughts about her. However, after hearing Yi Dingdang's words, Tang Jing came back to his senses. It seemed that Linger was indeed very dependent on him. However, this was also because of the complicated relationship between the two of them. He shook his head fiercely and denied without hesitation. No, how is that possible? It's impossible for me and her. Don't let your imagination run wild. We are not letting our imaginations run wild. We are taking precautions. Marshall firmly said. Marshall, weren't you very reasonable in the past? Why are you messing around with Dingdang now? Tang Jing didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he asked. Marshall said with a firm expression, I am not being unreasonable. It is just a woman's intuition. Linger's feelings for you are becoming more and more obvious. But I don't have that kind of thought. Tang Jing tried to defend himself, but it seemed very weak. How can we not know what a man is thinking? Eating from the bowl and looking at the pot. Moreover, he already has a few bowls and is still not satisfied. Humph. Yi Dingdang tenderly snorted and pouted. Tang Zheng was greatly embarrassed and said, How could I be that kind of person? All right, don't let your imagination run wild. Ding ling ling. Just at this time, his phone rang. As if he was grabbing onto a life-saving straw, he hurriedly picked up the phone and pretended to loudly ask, Hello, who is this? Young Master Tang, it's me, Ji Wuxiang. Director Ji, why are you calling so early? I have already prepared everything here, so I would like to ask young Master Tang for help. Tang Zhang's head moved as he remembered that Ji Wuxiang had once said that he wanted to ask Tang Zhang to help him set up Sky Chess. Tang Zhang also wanted to understand more about Sky Chess, so he agreed at that time. He did not expect him to start so soon. Tang Zhang hurriedly agreed, No problem, I will go find you now. Are you still at the chess club? He wished he could immediately leave the house. Otherwise, he would definitely be ruthlessly interrogated by several women. Facing a dangerous battle, he was not afraid at all, but facing so many women, he was at a loss of what to do. Yes, I will wait for young Master Tang at the chess club. Tang Jing hung up the phone. Seeing that the others were about to speak, he hurriedly said in a serious tone, Ji Wuxiang has some matters to attend to, so I have to go first. You're looking for an excuse to slip away again. Yi Dingdang sourly said. How can this be considered slipping away? This is a serious matter. Don't let your imagination run wild. Take advantage of the weekend to rest at home. I'll be leaving first. With that, he left as if he was escaping. Yi Dingdang hatefully stomped her foot and complained, so hateful. Once we talk about serious matters, he runs away. He must have a guilty conscience. Marshall slightly shook her head and said, he just realized it later. Maybe he really doesn't have any other thoughts. We are overthinking it. Even if he doesn't, Linger definitely does. We have to be on guard. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too easy for him? Yi Dingdang indignantly said. Then what if the two of them really are like that? Marshall asked worriedly. Yi Dingdang rolled her eyes and said, even if it really does happen, we can't let him go smoothly. Otherwise, he will take an inch and take a mile, thinking that we are easy to bully. Chapter 1058. When a woman got serious, her drive was extremely terrifying. Tang Jing was even more powerful, so he cleverly slipped away and went to the Go Club. The outside of the Go Club was as usual, and nothing out of the ordinary could be seen. The door was half open, and Ji Wuxiang stood at the door, welcoming Tang Jing from afar. Young Master Tang, you're here. Tang Jing nodded and walked into the Go Club with Ji Wuxiang. In a short period of time, the Go Club was already 70 to 80% rebuilt. Although it was not as quiet and elegant as before, the general situation was no different. Director Ji is really fast. Tang Jing praised. Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly and said, in order to complete celestial chess as soon as possible, I don't have much time, so I have to hurry. Understood, so what do we do next? Let me first introduce you to the details of celestial chess. There are a total of 7 positions in celestial chess, namely Dubhe, Merak, Facta, Migres, Alioth, Mizar, and Alcade. Each position has its own internal connection. If you're proficient in astronomy, you'll realize that these 7 positions actually correspond to the Big Dipper, and each position corresponds to the position of the Big Dipper. This way, there's no need for external forces, and you can connect with the Big Dipper and draw the power of the stars into celestial chess. Only in this way can celestial chess' true power be unleashed. The Big Dipper connects with the power of the stars? Tang Jing was shocked. He had never heard of this before, so he couldn't help but be shocked. Seeing Tang Jing's huge reaction, Ji Wuxiang smiled and said, actually, this isn't hard to understand. You absorb the spiritual energy in the air to cultivate, and where this spiritual energy comes from is actually closely related to the sun, moon, and stars. When the power of the sun, moon, and stars spills onto the world, it's absorbed by the plants and even blends into the air, turning into spiritual energy. Therefore, at the end of the day, spiritual energy and the power of the stars are interconnected. Tang Jing was speechless. This was the first time he had heard of this theory, and he couldn't help but be surprised. He asked, where did you hear this from? Actually, there were already some rough outlines of this theory in ancient times. After I verified it, I found that it was true, so I tried to create the heavenly chess. Ji Wuxiang said. Genius. Tang Jing was certain that Ji Wuxiang was not spouting nonsense. He could not help but feel greatly shaken. Sincerely convinced, he he gave him a thumbs up. Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly. Young Master Tang, you flatter me. I'm just drawing on the wisdom of the ancients. It's not worth mentioning. No, I'm sincerely praising you. The ancient people had a rough outline, but you were able to turn it into reality. You even created the heavenly chess. If this isn't a genius, then what is? Tang Jing shook his head and retorted. Pausing for a moment, Tang Jing continued, since the power of the stars is the same as the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, does that mean I can absorb the power of the stars and replace the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? This way, even if the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is thin, I can still rely on absorbing the power of the stars to cultivate and increase my cultivation level. Ji Wuxiang did not comment. I'm not a cultivator. I'm just a normal person, so I don't know if what young Master Tang said is possible. Tang Jing felt like a door to a whole new world had been opened. He was a bit impatient to try it out. He quickly asked, Director Ji, how can I draw on the power of the stars? I can't explain this clearly by myself. It's easier to explain in the process of setting up the heavenly chess. So, in a moment, I'll explain the key points one by one to you. Ji Wuxiang said. Okay, then let's begin. Tang Jing gladly agreed. The two of them arrived at the hall in the middle of the Go Club. The chessboards were still in place, not damaged in the slightest because of the fierce battle last time. In addition, all the members of the Go Club were sitting in front of the chessboards, staring at them with burning eyes. Seeing Ji Wuxiang and Tang Jing walk over, all the players raised their heads for the first time. If it was in the past, no matter what happened in the outside world, all of their attention would be on the chessboards. They definitely would not be distracted by looking up. Ji Wuxiang looked at all the players and said, Everyone, listen up. Today, we will complete the last step of the heavenly chess. It is also the most important step, the one that will determine success or failure. A while ago, the heavenly chess was attacked, and a part of the power of the heavenly chess was tested. Everyone has seen it for themselves. After we succeed this time, the power of the heavenly chess will rise to another level. Success or failure will depend on this one move. No one said anything, but the meaning expressed by everyone's determined gazes was very clear. Everyone had already made the greatest decision, and would definitely put in the greatest effort to complete the task given by Ji Wuxiang. Ji Wuxiang looked at everyone with approval, then said, Young Master Tang will play an important role in the process of setting up the heavenly chess. You all just need to follow the steps I gave you before. There can't be the slightest mistake. Everyone nodded at the same time. They looked at Tang Jing and nodded slightly at him. Tang Jing also felt an indescribable emotion in the silence. His expression also became serious as he said, Everyone, don't worry. I will act according to President Ji's request. I will definitely not cause any trouble for everyone. If there is anything that is not done properly, please point it out. All the players were still silent. Ji Wuxiang said, Young Master Tang, you stand here. This is the center of the heavenly chess. When a player moves the heavenly chess, all the power will be concentrated here. In the past, I also tried to guide the power of the stars and then infuse it into the heavenly chess. Later on, I discovered that an ordinary person like me can't do this at all. Although I am proficient in the heavenly chess, this is a fatal shortcoming. I have no way to make up for it, so the heavenly chess has never been completed. Hearing this, Tang Jing was very surprised and asked, The heavenly chess was created by you, so why can't you successfully set it up? Ji Wuxiang smiled bitterly and said, I don't know martial arts or magic, so this is destined. I can't do anything about it. Seeing his sincere words, Tang Jing didn't have any doubts. He nodded and said, All right, then we will do as President Ji says. I stand here, but I don't know what the power of the stars is. How do I know how to guide this power? Ji Wuxiang said confidently, I believe in young Master Tang's ability. Once the heavenly chest communicates with the Big Dipper and activates the power of the stars, young Master Tang will naturally sense it. Tang Jing smiled and said, even I don't have that much confidence. But since President Ji thinks so highly of me, then I won't decline. When you sense the power of the stars, then guide the power of the stars to the corresponding positions on the heavenly chess. Look, these are those positions. Ji Wuxiang pointed out the positions for Tang Jing. These positions were all on the chessboard, and they were all small dots. When these dots were combined together, they formed a complicated heavenly chess game. Chapter 1059. Tang Jing looked up. Above his head was the roof, so he couldn't see the stars. However, he could see that the sun was high up in the sky. He couldn't help but ask curiously, since we're absorbing the power of the stars, how do we begin when there are no stars in the daytime? Ji Wuxiang smiled and said, the stars in the sky don't disappear just because it's daytime. They're just blocked by the sunlight. They're still there. Moreover, the sun is also one of the stars. Therefore, your worries aren't a problem. Plus, a pinnacle novel. Tang Jing suddenly saw the light and resentfully said, this is me being blinded by a single leaf and thinking wrongly. If there are no other questions, let's begin. After Ji Wuxiang finished speaking and saw that Tang Jing didn't have any objections, he nodded to the other players. The players all had serious expressions. They looked at each other tacitly and then stretched out their hands. A black chess piece appeared in their hands and landed on the chessboard with a thump. After the piece was placed, Tang Jing immediately felt a mysterious energy emerge. This energy didn't ripple from the chessboard, but rather descended from the sky and penetrated through the roof. Tang Jing subconsciously looked up. The roof didn't change at all, but that mysterious feeling was very obvious and couldn't be shaken off. He immediately remembered Ji Wuxiang's words. He said that once the sky chess connected with the power of the Big Dipper, he would definitely sense it. Ji Wuxiang's prediction was godly. He actually guessed correctly. He couldn't help but take a deep look at Ji Wuxiang. He noticed that he was staring at the numerous chessboards with a serious expression. He was like a general commanding thousands of soldiers and horses. These chessboards were his battlefield. He had no distractions. Tang Jing also hurriedly gathered his thoughts and focused all his attention on the power of the stars. Gradually, more and more power of the stars fell from the sky. Tang Jing felt as if the air was about to become viscous. It was as if it had turned into seawater. The rich energy made his heart tremble. He closed his eyes. He didn't use his eyes to see, but relied entirely on his instinctive perception. Once he closed his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, his perception of the power of the stars would be especially obvious. Tang Jing moved his head and tried to guide the power of the stars according to Ji Wuxiang's instructions. He activated his Jin Qi and circulated his power. He pointed out a finger and a trace of Jin Qi shot out from his fingertip. It pushed the power of the stars in front of him and infused it into the corresponding point on the chessboard. Puff! When his Jin Qi collided with the power of the stars was like seawater. Under the external force, it separated on its own and did not enter the chessboard as he had expected. Ha! Tang Jing was shocked. He originally thought that it would be very smooth, but now it seemed that he had underestimated the difficulty. Once again, he concentrated and held his breath. He tried a few more times, but his true qi still couldn't move the power of the stars. What should he do? He furrowed his brows subconsciously. Ji Wuxiang looked at him and said, "Young Master Tang, did you sense the power of the stars?" Tang Zhang's eyes were still closed. He nodded slightly, but the dignified look between his brows did not disappear. Young Master Tang, you don't need to care too much. You just need to follow your heart and we believe that you will definitely succeed. Ji Wuxiang's heart moved as he guessed Tang Zheng's predicament and encouraged him. Tang Zheng remained calm and collected. He was unwilling to admit defeat. This time, he did not rashly activate his Jin Qi. Instead, he decided to find another way. Since the power of the stars and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth were of the same origin, then would he be able to communicate with the power of the stars, just like how he usually communicated with the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In this way, he didn't need to urge his true qi to move the power of the stars, he only needed to move his mind, and the power of the stars would move according to his will. Of course, this was only a beautiful wish of his. Whether or not it was possible still needed to be tested. He got rid of all distracting thoughts and entered a mysterious state. He tried to communicate with the power of the stars. This was many times more difficult than communicating with the world's spiritual energy. As long as one was a cultivator, they could communicate with the world's spiritual energy. However, there were many differences between the power of the stars and the world's spiritual energy. He did not know if others had done it before, but he had already experienced the difficulty. However, what made him depressed was that no matter how he activated his true qi, he could not communicate with the power of the stars. Time passed by minute and he was about to lose all hope. I don't believe that I can't do anything when the power of the stars is right in front of me. He was unwilling to admit defeat. His mind moved and he remembered what the Demon Lord had said. The scarlet lunar beast relied on absorbing the essence of the moon to increase its cultivation. The essence of the moon was also a type of power of the stars. Since the scarlet lunar beast could communicate with the essence of the sun and moon, then he should bring it here. Perhaps there would be an unexpected gain. However, it was too late now. He was not prepared to give up and decided to continue trying. Over and over again, he was about to lose all hope. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already given up. However, Tang Zheng's persistence was incomparable to that of an ordinary person. He was able to achieve his current success not only because of his opportunities, but also because of his tenacious and indomitable character. The chess player placed another chess piece. An even more powerful power of the stars rushed down from the roof, filling up this small space. Suddenly, the ancient clear heaven scroll started to operate on its own. Tang Zheng was shocked. He wanted to stop the ancient clear heaven scroll immediately. However, just as this thought appeared, he immediately stopped it. He suspiciously sensed the situation in his body. The ancient clear heaven scroll had always been very mysterious. In the past, Tian Chanzi and his enemies had racked their brains and even sacrificed their lives to snatch it. As for the origin of the ancient clear heaven scroll, even Tian Chanzi was not clear about it. However, in short, the ancient clear heaven scroll was not an ordinary technique. It was just that Tang Zheng had been cultivating for so long, but he had never discovered the peculiarities of the ancient clear heaven scroll. Now that he saw it operating on its own, he seemed to have guessed that something was about to happen. The ancient clear heaven scroll had operated for 7 small cycles. Just as he was completely puzzled, there was a rumbling sound in his body. His true qi was like a surging river flowing through his meridians. Finally, it was all absorbed into his yuanying. All of his meridians had become empty, without a single trace of true qi. What's going on? He was at a loss. But before he could react, the power of the stars from all directions seemed to have found a vent, rushing into his meridians. It was as if a dry desert had encountered a storm, and in an instant, it was full of vitality. Rumble. A loud rumbling sound came from within his meridians, as if it was the sound of a surging river, causing one's heart to surge. Tang Zheng fiercely opened his eyes, which flashed with a trace of light as he raised his head to look. A whirlpool had appeared on the roof, as if the clouds had been stirred up, collapsing from the middle into a whirlpool, and he was right below the whirlpool. The mighty power of the stars poured down from the whirlpool, pouring into his body. The rumbling sound continued for a long time. Tang Zheng's spirit was agitated, and his face was red. He was so excited that he did not know what to say. This was beyond his imagination. What exactly was going on? Why was the ancient clear heaven scroll able to communicate with the power of the stars, and even absorb it into his body? Moreover, he had already sensed that the power of the stars, under the effect of the ancient clear heaven scroll, was rapidly transforming into true qi. This was exactly the same as when he absorbed the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and transformed it into true qi. The only difference was that the true qi transformed from the power of the stars contained an even greater amount of energy. It was expanding his meridians little by little, and his true qi was rising steadily. His body was like a big balloon, quickly filled with true qi. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Jing with shining eyes, and asked, "Young Master Tang, what's going on?" Tang Jing did not answer, because he had already reached a critical moment. His true qi was rapidly rising, reaching its peak, and finally breaking through the bottleneck in one fell swoop. Tang Zheng's eyes were covered with a layer of purple light, and he could clearly feel his cultivation soar, rising 2 levels, and unexpectedly reaching the 6th stage Yuanying. He could clearly see his own Yuanying face becoming clearer, and his 4 limbs were no different from a real person's. Even his meridians were sprouting little by little. This feeling was very subtle, as if he was creating a new life. Once he broke through, the speed at which he absorbed the power of the stars decreased by a lot, and the vortex above his head also dissipated. Ji Wuxiang stared at the top of his head with shining eyes, and then looked at Tang Jing. It was clear that he had already realized something. "Young Master Tang," he gently called out again. "Don't worry, I will now guide the power of the stars into the heavenly chess, you take control of the overall situation," Tang Jing lightly said. Ji Wuxiang's face revealed an excited expression, and said, "I'm already prepared, please make your move, young Master Tang." Tang Jing pointed his finger forward, and this time, there was no true qi bursting out from his finger, but the power of the stars between heaven and earth was drawn in. Swoosh, 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 the power of the stars turned into several streaks, and quickly shot towards the corresponding points on the chessboard. In an instant, the chessboard soared into the sky, enveloping everyone's heads. These streaks of light intertwined, and finally condensed into a huge chessboard in midair. The crisscrossing chessboard shone brightly, and emitted a strange aura. Tang Jing could not help but raise his head to look, and was stunned by this scene. As it turned out, after guiding the power of the stars into the chessboard, it was as if the chessboard had come to life. Ji Wuxiang's face was filled with excitement as he raised his head to look, and his eyes flickered with an indescribable expression as he muttered to himself, "Finally succeeded, it's a success." The other players also changed their usual wooden expressions, and their faces all became lively as they raised their heads to look, unable to take their eyes off the chessboard. Gotcha! Suddenly, the chessboard in front of the players cracked and fell apart. Finally, with a few rumbling sounds, all the chessboards were turned into pieces. Tang Jing was shocked, but the others were not surprised, as if they already knew this would happen. "Ha ha ha, the heavenly chess has been completed." Ji Wuxiang raised his head to the sky and laughed loudly, completely different from his usual reserved self. Tang Jing looked at him with a burning gaze, and felt that at this moment, he seemed to be a little different, but he could not pinpoint the specific feeling. Chapter 1060. After the chessboard shattered, the chessboard and the air turned into specks of light, just like the stars in the night sky, falling in all directions and disappearing into the floor. Tang Jing looked at this scene in astonishment, not knowing what was behind this change. On the other hand, Ji Wuxiang's expression was still excited, so Tang Jing relaxed. It seemed that this heavenly chess was really a success. After experiencing what happened just now, he had a deeper understanding of heavenly chess. Heavenly chess was not a formation, but a kind of chess game. This kind of chess game was very subtle, and Ji Wuxiang was a genius, able to create this kind of chess game based on the wisdom of the ancients. Once the chess game was activated, it could communicate with the power of the stars in the 9 heavens, and use the power of the stars to unleash the power of the chess game to attack the enemy. Most formations required a certain amount of energy, and then a corresponding chant or formation to be effective. Among them, the energy source was the most important. Heavenly chess also had something in common. Its energy source was the power of the stars. As long as the stars in the sky were not destroyed, its energy source would be endless. From this, it could be seen how powerful heavenly chess was. There was a world of difference between this array and the majority of array formations. Tang Zheng understood this point, so he had a deeper understanding of how extraordinary heavenly chess was. He was even more interested in how heavenly chess would be used. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Zheng meaningfully, saying, "Young Master Tang is indeed a young hero. I've racked my brains for so long, but I still haven't succeeded. Now that young Master Tang has taken action, it immediately succeeded. I truly admire you." Tang Zheng's gains were also great. He could already sense the power of the stars, and his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds. This kind of gain could not be described with words. However, he did not tell Ji Wuxiang this, and nodded reservedly, saying, "This is all thanks to Manager Ji's genius ability. If you didn't create heavenly chess, it would be impossible to accomplish such a feat. Young Master Tang is too kind. Director Ji, the heavenly chess has been successfully completed. I wonder if you have any specific ideas for the next function of the heavenly chess?" Tang Zheng asked. Ji Wuxiang pondered for a while, then said, "I've considered this matter a long time ago. Even I haven't completely understood the functions of heavenly chess, so we have to experiment step by step." "Even you haven't completely figured it out?" Tang Zheng was shocked. Even the creator of the heavenly chess was unable to understand it, then how powerful was the heavenly chess? It was simply unimaginable. Ji Wuxiang let out a long sigh and resentfully said, "I'm ashamed to say that I, Ji Wuxiang, am lacking in talent and knowledge, and indeed am unable to completely understand the functions of heavenly chess. However, I believe that with young Master Tang joining us in the future, we will definitely be able to explore more functions of heavenly chess." "You want me to explore heavenly chess with you in the future?" Tang Zheng was surprised. "Of course." Ji Wuxiang nodded heavily. The success of heavenly chess could not have been achieved without young Master Tang's help. Inviting young Master Tang to explore heavenly chess together is only natural. In reality, Tang Zheng was also filled with curiosity towards heavenly chess. Since Ji Wuxiang was sincerely inviting him, then there was no need to refuse. Thus, he gladly agreed, "Since Director Ji is inviting me, then it would be impolite of me to refuse." Ji Wuxiang laughed loudly. "I believe that with young Master Tang joining us, we will definitely be able to discover more functions of heavenly chess. It's still early, so let's begin. Let's see what functions heavenly chess has." Tang Zheng said impatiently, filled with great anticipation. Ji Wuxiang nodded, "All right, then I'll start the heavenly chess." After speaking, Ji Wuxiang nodded at the Go players. A Go player walked to a corner of the hall and stopped. The others also walked to a corner and stood there. Tang Zheng watched this scene with a strange expression. His eyebrows gradually knitted together, because he gradually saw some clues. The positions of these Go players were similar to the positions on the Go board just now. Each person's position was a key intersection. Yao Guang. At Ji Wuxiang's command, the Go players immediately moved. It was as if they had become Go pieces, moving one step on the Go board. Everyone's positions changed greatly. Whoosh! A ray of light flew up from the Go player's feet and shot into the sky. It broke through the roof and rushed into the 9 heavens. Tang Jing hurriedly retreated from the hall and looked at the few rays of light in the sky. Under the illumination of the sun, these rays of light were very weak. A normal person would not be able to see them with the naked eye. Mizar! At another command, all the Go players immediately moved. Another few rays of light shot into the sky. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's pupils contracted. Because, after those rays of light disappeared into the horizon, he actually felt a star light up in the daytime sky. It was broad daylight, so how could he see starlight? He thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Yu Hang, Tian Quan, but with Ji Wuxiang's command, the Go players moved to the corresponding positions. Tang Jing once again saw the twinkling star in the sky. Moreover, the twinkling star was different each time. It was definitely not the same star. Inspiration struck him, and he immediately remembered that this heavenly chess piece was connected to the Big Dipper. Thus, every time the Go players moved, the twinkling star would be the corresponding Big Dipper. The distance between the ground and the stars was an astronomical number, but Tang Jing was able to see the corresponding star through the vast sky. Tang Jing felt that if he said this, he would probably be treated as a lunatic. Thus, he decided not to say it. Even to Ji Wuxiang, he was prepared to keep his mouth shut. Ji Wuxiang naturally could not have guessed that Tang Jing could see the twinkling stars in the distant sky. If he knew, he would definitely be shocked. Right. Besides shock, he was even more shocked. Because this had far exceeded his expectations. He saw that Tang Jing was staring at the sky with a burning gaze. Without saying anything, he ordered the Go players to complete 7 moves. In the past, although the Go players could complete 7 moves through meticulous practice, the power could not be compared to now. After saying the 2 words Tian Shu, he fell silent and stared at the ground with a burning gaze. Swoosh! Countless rays of light rose from the ground, rushing through the roof and into the sky. If it were night time, this scene would definitely be extremely beautiful and dazzling. Ji Wuxiang's eyes shone with a bright light, the corner of his mouth twitching as he muttered to himself, since the heavenly chess piece has been completed, then the world has become my Go game. Using the world as a Go game, this is the true profundity of the heavenly chess piece. Tang Zheng's attention was almost entirely focused on the rays of light soaring into the sky, so he did not hear Ji Wuxiang's muttering. At the final moment, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper began to twinkle. A vast power descended from the sky and landed in the sky above the capital. Finally, it completely enveloped the capital and disappeared. At this moment, countless experts walked out of their rooms and looked up at the sky. Somehow, they had already sensed the change, but they could not tell what it was exactly. Tang Zhang's feeling was especially strong. Just now, he actually had the impulse to lose control of his mind, but he did not know what was going on. He suddenly turned to stare at Ji Wuxiang and saw that he was excited. He said impatiently, "The heavenly chess piece has been officially activated, and the effect is very good. It has already enveloped the entire capital and will protect this huge capital from being invaded by external enemies." Protect the entire capital? Tang Zhang's eyelids twitched wildly. This was the same as a defensive formation. However, Tang Jing understood that there was an absolute difference between this and a defensive formation. This was because the heavenly chess piece could not only defend, but also attack. He had always had a deep impression of the heavenly chess piece's invisible attack that the High Lord had suffered. Ji Wuxiang nodded heavily and said excitedly, "Yes, this is all thanks to young Master Tang. If you did not activate the heavenly chess piece, it would only be able to protect a small part of the chess club at most. Now, the heavenly chess piece can already protect the entire capital." Tang Jing frowned and asked thoughtfully, "From what you're saying, the heavenly chess piece's power and functions can continue to be expanded and even protect an even larger area. Ji Wuxiang did not hide anything and even nodded proudly, of course. In theory, the heavenly chess piece should be able to protect the entire world under the dome of heaven. Tang Zhang's eyelids twitched wildly. No formation could do this. Even the formations left behind by the ancients in the 100,000 mountains were focused on the 100,000 mountains. This kind of formation was already very rare, and could even be considered the work of a genius. However, compared to the heavenly chess piece, it seemed petty. Although it sounded very cool and powerful, Tang Jing knew that the more powerful something was, the more uncertain it would be. Why did only a few large countries in this world possess nuclear bombs? That was because they were weapons of mass destruction. If everyone had them, or if some crazy small country also had nuclear bombs, such as the country to the northeast of Huaxia, it would be an indescribable threat if they had nuclear bombs. That was because small countries had no fear. If they recklessly launched a nuclear bomb attack, it would start a new world war. If that happened, this world would sink into the quagmire of war. By the same logic, the heavenly chess piece was so powerful, but it was controlled by a single person. This would lead to many problems. Absolute power would lead to greed. The heavenly chess piece's absolute power would lead to even bigger problems. Someone would proclaim himself as God and stand on everyone's shoulders because he had the heavenly chess piece in his hands. If anyone dared to disobey him, they would be punished by the heavenly chess. A trace of panic flashed through Tang Zhang's eyes. He realized that he had completely underestimated the heavenly chess and seemed to have fallen into a very ominous situation. The light in his eyes intensified as he stared at Ji Wuxiang with a burning gaze and said, "Director Ji, why didn't you tell me this earlier? The heavenly chess piece is actually so powerful." Ji Wuxiang smiled and said, "I never thought that the heavenly chess piece would be so powerful. I only realized this after activating the heavenly chess piece just now." Tang Zhang looked at Ji Wuxiang skeptically. Ji Wuxiang's face was calm, as if he did not say anything at all. Chapter 1061. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Zhang as usual, as if his heart was magnanimous, without any pretense or concealment. Especially when facing Tang Zhang's burning gaze, he was even more at ease. Pinnacle novel. Tang Zhang finally retracted his gaze. He didn't know if he was imagining things, but when he thought of celestial chess' great use, he felt uncomfortable. Since celestial chess is so useful, what does Boss Ji plan to do with it? Ji Wuxiang's lips curled into a faint smile, saying, "Of course it's to protect the chess club, to protect the capital from invasion. The capital is the capital of a country, who would dare to attack it?" Tang Zhang asked. Ji Wuxiang shook his head, saying, "That might not be the case. Young Master Tang should be very clear about what happened in the Imperial City. If there was celestial chess, perhaps the Imperial City wouldn't have been destroyed." Tang Zhang's pupils shrank as he stared straight at Ji Wuxiang. He was also involved in the battle in the Imperial City. Didn't this mean that celestial chess was still targeting him? He felt a deep sense of danger as his aura surged, emitting a dangerous aura. Ji Wuxiang seemed to have sensed this dangerous aura and hurriedly explained, "Young Master Tang, don't misunderstand. I have no intention of targeting you. I'm just afraid that the 100 Faces Star Lord will attack the capital again. With celestial chess protection, it will be difficult for the 100 Faces Star Lord's scheme to succeed. Celestial chess can block the 100 Faces Star Lord?" Tang Zhang asked in a deep voice. Ji Wuxiang's face revealed a trace of arrogance, saying proudly, "Of course. How can a mere 100 Faces Star Lord be a match for my celestial chess?" Tang Zhang's head jumped, asking, "How do you know so much about the 100 Faces Star Lord?" Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly, saying, "Young Master Tang and the 100 Faces Star Lord had a great battle in the capital. As long as one is interested, they will naturally inquire about it. I have many sources of information, so it's not difficult for me to find out some details. Although the 100 Faces Star Lord is a character from ancient times, his cultivation may not be that high, so celestial chess is more than enough to deal with him." Tang Jing frowned, saying, "Then you mean that celestial chess is more than enough to deal with me?" Ji Wuxiang's expression slightly changed, shaking his head. "Young Master Tang is too serious. You and we are allies. Celestial chess being able to succeed. Celestial chess's success is all thanks to young Master Tang. Chess's success. Celestial chess is against young Master Tang." Tang Jing gave a cold smile and said with an unkind tone, "Is that so? But why do I feel that I'm being used as a tool? To help S for help makings. Celestial chess is ISN's as Wuxiang's is, because it's to see this, SSS, S is S him. That's impossible. I understand young Master Tang's. Celestial chess will not make things difficult for young Master Tang. Moreover, with celestial chess help, young Master Tang can do many things, isn't that so?" Ji Wuxiang stared at Tang Jing. Their gazes met, and their invisible auras clashed. Tang Zhang's mind was spinning rapidly, thinking about and Ji Wuxiang's true. Now, there was one thing he was sure of. Ji Wuxiang had hidden a lot of the truth from him. After he fell into Ji Wuxiang's trap, he unknowingly helped him complete celestial chess. If Ji Wuxiang had known celestial chess was so powerful, he would have weighed the pros and cons. But there was no medicine for regret in this world. Since celestial chess had been completed, if he left now and allowed celestial chess to fall into Ji Wuxiang's hands, wouldn't that be benefiting him for nothing? Right now, he should think of a way to control celestial chess. However, his knowledge and research on celestial chess was still too shallow. It was not enough to control celestial chess. An idea came to him, and he decided to suppress the dissatisfaction in his heart. He feigned civility and said, "Since Manager Ji thinks highly of me, then I'll thank you. I wonder if Manager Ji can teach me how to control celestial chess." Tang Jing went straight to the point. He stared at Ji Wuxiang with a burning gaze. Ji Wuxiang's expression was normal as he smiled faintly. "Young Master Tang's suggestion is very good. Celestial chess is the world's celestial chess. If I own it alone, then I'll be monopolizing it, which is not a good thing. Since young Master Tang is willing to take on this responsibility alone, then of course I have to express my heartfelt admiration. I don't have any other good points, but I still have this bit of foresight and magnanimity. As long as young Master Tang doesn't mind, I'll focus on telling young Master Tang all the details of celestial chess." Tang Zhang's head trembled. He stared straight at Ji Wuxiang, as if he was doubting if he was hearing things. Ji Wuxiang actually agreed so readily. It was completely unexpected. Tang Jing thought that the other party would refuse again and again, and that he would have to spend a lot of effort to convince him. But now it seemed that his worries were completely unnecessary. Could it be that he was measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain? Ji Wuxiang had good intentions, and he had completely misunderstood. Tang Zhang was skeptical. He really didn't understand the situation. However, since the other party was so generous, no matter what the other party's intentions were, he would have the opportunity to get to know celestial chess better. This was of course a good thing that was hard to come by. Therefore, he had no reason to refuse. Tang Jing nodded with a solemn face. He made the final decision. "All right. Since Director Ji's kindness is hard to refuse, then I will agree." Ji Wuxiang was extremely happy as he said, "Then I really have to thank young Master Tang. With your help, we can activate and complete celestial chess even faster. When the time comes, the ones who will benefit will be the common people of the world. Everyone will definitely be grateful to young Master Tang for what you have done." Ji Wuxiang's voice was filled with passion and excitement, as if it was filled with gratitude. His words were sincere, causing others to involuntarily believe his words. Tang Zheng wouldn't be fooled by such nonsense. Although he had a lot of doubts in his heart, he didn't show much of a reaction on the surface. Therefore, he nodded towards Ji Wuxiang and said, "Director Ji, this matter shouldn't be delayed. Let's begin now." Ji Wuxiang smiled. He looked at Tang Zheng with narrowed eyes and said, "Since that's the case, then let's begin." Tang Zheng's expression froze. He stared straight at Ji Wuxiang. His eyes swept over all the chess players present. They all stood in their respective positions with solemn expressions. There was still a trace of joy in their eyes. Tang Zheng gathered his thoughts. He understood that what was going to happen next was the most important thing. No matter how much Ji Wuxiang hid, in the end, there was a possibility of it being exposed. Therefore, Tang Zheng was prepared to pay attention to every important detail. He definitely couldn't be careless. Chapter 1062. According to Ji Wuxiang's instructions, Tang Zheng once again stood in the celestial chess. When Ji Wuxiang gave the order, all the chess players completed their corresponding moves. Then, rays of light rushed out from under their feet and intertwined in the air above everyone's heads. At the same time, an invisible force of stars descended from the sky under the bright sun and landed in the capital, covering the entire city. Ordinary people did not notice anything strange at all, but the experts who had already walked out of their houses and sensed something strange felt it even more clearly. They used all their skills as if they wanted to sense the abnormal situation descending from the sky. The force of stars descended into the mortal world. Although this force was very strange, many people could still sense its existence, but they were unable to communicate with it. It was like a scent. One could smell its existence, but it was extremely difficult to find it. Tian Chanzi soared into the sky and ascended into the clouds. He looked down at the capital below, then looked up at the sky and clicked his tongue in wonder. Strange. What kind of force is this? Why is it so tyrannical? This force came from the ninth heaven, causing Tian Chanzi's heart to tremble in fear. Especially in the unseen world, there seemed to be a significant change in the capital. He also sensed it. What caused all of this? He frowned, unable to figure it out. His gaze swept across the capital and discovered that many experts had already ascended to the sky and were looking down. They were also trying to figure out what had happened. This included a few great clans and experts from the inner palace. However, in the end, they realized that all their efforts were in vain because they could not figure out what had happened at all. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They were suspicious, but there was nothing they could do. Suddenly, someone exclaimed and stared at the sky as if they had seen a ghost. "This. What's going on?" someone asked in fear. No one could answer because this was the first time they had seen such a scene in their lives. What on earth had happened? As it turned out, two bright red suns had appeared in the sky at the same time. It was like a scene from myths and legends. Because of this, not only the experts, but even the ordinary people looked up at the sky and stared at this strange scene. One after another, they cried out. Heaven Monk raised his head in disbelief. In his memory, he had never seen such a scene before. In ancient times, there was Hou-Yi shooting down the sun. Could it be that this was also the case? His mind was somewhat blank. He could not figure it out. A few minutes ago, Xiaobai and Little Yu walked out of the house and looked up at the sky. Little Yu seemed to have sensed something. She slowly closed her eyes and opened her little mouth. A portion of the moonlight essence from the vast and mighty power of the stars that descended from the sky rushed into its little mouth. Its face revealed an expression of enjoyment, and a glimmer of light flashed through its small eyes. Ever since she was born, to absorb you, she had never absorbed the moonlight's essence. Its abilities were mostly inherited from its race's innate talent, and its own cultivation was almost non-existent. This time, it sensed the power of the stars descending from the sky. Its racial talent was activated, and it automatically absorbed the essence of the moonlight. In an instant, a round of bright red moonlight appeared in the sky, just like the sun. This caused those who did not know the situation to subconsciously think that there were two suns in the sky, but it was actually caused by little Yu absorbing the essence of the moonlight. Xiao Bai looked at little Yu thoughtfully. He smacked his red lips and muttered to himself, "Looks like little Yu's strength is going to increase by leaps and bounds." Xiao Bai was very smart and easily figured out the cause and effect, so he wasn't surprised. Instead, he stared at little Yu with a curious look. Little Yu's cultivation and strength were rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the power of the scarlet lunar beast and also the extraordinary power of the moonlight essence. In fact, the power of the stars was a level higher than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The cultivation speed of absorbing the power of the stars was definitely faster than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, normal people could not do this, so they didn't understand. Tang Jing channeled more power of the stars into the celestial chess. The ground was already covered with a layer of sparkling light. Due to the cover of the roof, the people in the Celestial Chess Club couldn't see the strange phenomenon in the sky. Tang Zheng was not distracted and didn't have time to care about other things. He channeled the power of the stars into the celestial chess while exploring the mysteries of the celestial chess. Gradually, all the moves of the celestial chess were imprinted in his mind. Light spots gathered in his mind and intertwined into a light net. Finally, they intertwined into the shape of a chess game. Tang Zheng moved his head and exclaimed, "The Celestial Chess Club." Unknowingly, he had imprinted the Celestial Chess Club in his mind. However, he only had a rough idea of its scale. He only had the shape, but he didn't understand its essence and true meaning. "Stop!" All of a sudden, Ji Wuxiang shouted, and all the chess players stopped. The power of the stars dissipated. Tang Zheng's eyes shone. He stared straight at Ji Wuxiang and asked, "Director Ji, why did you stop?" "It's late and everyone is tired." "We'll continue another day," Ji Wuxiang said indifferently. "We should continue in one go." Tang Zheng objected. He had just finished creating the rough structure of the Celestial Chess Club and was about to strike while the iron was hot. He wanted to comprehend the essence and true meaning of the Celestial Chess Club in one go. However, he was stopped by Ji Wuxiang. This made him a little unhappy. Without the cooperation of the other players and Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zheng wouldn't have been able to activate the Celestial Chess Club, let alone comprehend the essence of it. Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly and said, "We've already gained a lot today. We need to comprehend more of what we've gained today. So, we'll invite young Master Tang another day to strengthen and perfect the Celestial Chess Club." Ji Wuxiang's words couldn't be refuted, causing Tang Jing to frown and swallow the words he was about to say. "Then I'll take my leave." Tang Jing turned around and left. The smile on Ji Wuxiang's face gradually disappeared, and his expression was unfathomable. He turned around and said to the chess players, "This time we have gained a lot and benefited a lot. When you go back, you must properly comprehend it." "Yes." In the future, the power of the Celestial Chess Club will be different. It will definitely surprise the world. The era of the Celestial Chess Club is about to begin. Ji Wuxiang waved his fist heavily. His body exuded a completely different and domineering aura. If Tang Jing saw this scene, he would definitely be shocked because he had always thought that Ji Wuxiang was just an ordinary person without the strength to truss up a chicken. However, the truth was not so. When Tang Jing walked out of the Go Club, the crimson moon in the sky had already disappeared. So, he didn't know about the strange phenomenon in the sky. But along the way, many people gathered in the streets and alleys. In the streets and alleys, they looked up and stared at the sky, discussing animatedly. From their words, Tang Jing finally understood that there were two suns in the sky just now. He couldn't hide his surprise. But seeing everyone speaking with such certainty and solemnity, they were definitely not lying. The shock in his heart could be imagined. He couldn't help but look up. But there was only the setting sun that was gradually setting in the west. There was no second sun. He couldn't figure it out. Frowning, he returned to the door. Xiao Bai rode little Yu Yu and dashed towards him. Xiao Bai couldn't wait and shouted, "Master, I have something important to tell you." Whoosh! After saying that, Xiao Bai jumped up from the back of the red moon beast and landed directly on Tang Jing's shoulder. It hugged his head and acted like a spoiled child. "Master, I found a secret. Do you want to hear it?" Tang Jing couldn't help but laugh. He patted its little head and asked, "What's the matter? Why are you making such a fuss?" Xiao Bai pointed at little Yu Yu on the ground and shouted, "Little Yu Yu, don't move. You are the main character today. Do you understand? The main character has to have an aura. Stand up straight." Little Yu Yu rolled its eyes and helplessly stretched its back. It looked like a big dog, but it looked more imposing. "Master, do you see anything different about little Yu Yu?" Xiao Bai deliberately asked. "Xiao Bai, stop fooling around." Tang Jing patted its head and said. Xiao Bai pouted and said unhappily, "How am I fooling around? I am serious. Do you see anything different about little Yu Yu?" Seeing Xiao Bai being so serious, Tang Jing's head twitched. Could it be that it wasn't deliberately playing with him? He quickly collected his thoughts and stared at little Yu Yu. Little Yu Yu seemed to have changed a little. Its eyes were more spirited and sharp. It had an imposing aura. Moreover, its body seemed to have grown a little longer. Although it wasn't obvious, it could still be seen if one looked carefully. "What's going on?" Tang Jing asked in surprise. Xiao Bai proudly said, "Do you want to know?" "Of course. Hurry up and tell me. Don't keep me in suspense." Tang Jing impatiently urged. Xiao Bai laughed and said, "Do you remember what the demon lord said about the red moon beast?" Tang Jing thought for a moment and nodded, "I remember. The red moon beast has an extraordinary talent. It can absorb the essence of the moonlight and use it for itself. It can help with its cultivation." Xiao Bai repeated. Tang Jing felt that it was inconceivable and asked, "Of course I know this. But this is broad daylight. Could there be a moon? Moreover, I didn't see it absorbing the essence of the moonlight before. Who said there is no moon? A moon can appear in broad daylight." "Master, did you see the red moon in the sky just now?" Xiao Bai shook its head and said. "Red moon." Tang Jing was shocked. Could it be the second sun that people were talking about? Little White curled her lips and said disdainfully, "What second sun?" "That's because the moon has turned red and the sun and moon are shining together. This is all thanks to little Yu Yu." "Little Yu Yu, don't you agree?" Little Yu Yu drooped its head and called out listlessly. It could be said that it agreed with Xiao Bai's question, but it obviously admitted to this point. Chapter 1063. Tang Jing finally understood what was going on. He was inexplicably shocked and could not speak for a long time. "Master, what's wrong with you?" Little White stared at her and asked. Tang Jing came back to his senses. He also understood the reason behind this. It was definitely the heavenly chest that caused the power of the stars to descend into the world, and then little Yu Yu coincidentally absorbed the essence of the sun and moon. He could not help but sigh with emotion. Although the power of the heavenly chest was out of his expectations and made him feel at a loss, he had also gained a lot from it. Not only did he connect with the power of the stars and increase his cultivation, even little Yu Yu had absorbed the essence of the moonlight for the first time. Without a doubt, little Yu Yu's strength would increase rapidly in the future. The benefits definitely outweighed the disadvantages. Little Yu Yu, when you absorb the essence of the moonlight, will the moon definitely turn blood red? Must it be so big? Tang Jing asked curiously. Today's strange scene had definitely attracted the attention of everyone. In the future, when little Yu Yu absorbed the essence of the moonlight and caused the appearance of the blood moon, it would definitely attract even more attention. Little Yu Yu nodded lightly. Tang Zhang's brows furrowed helplessly. It seemed that the so-called good things were also accompanied by danger. Fortune and disaster were always together. Master, what does this matter? In any case, other people do not know that the blood moon was caused by little Yu Yu. Moreover, even if they know, we are not afraid of anyone. Xiao Bai raised his head and said fearlessly. Tang Zheng, suddenly, Tian Chanzi's voice came from afar. Tian Chanzi came from afar and in the blink of an eye, he asked impatiently, did you see two suns appear in the sky? Tang Zheng nodded slightly, is there a problem? Aren't you surprised? This is a huge strange scene, I have never seen it before in my life. Tian Chanzi said anxiously. Tang Jing smiled bitterly and said, of course I'm not surprised because I already know what is going on. Ah, how did you know? Tian Chanzi turned pale with fright. Tang Jing pointed at little Yu Yu and said, the culprit is here. Tian Chanzi was stunned for a moment and said, Red Lunar Beast. Are you saying that the second sun is related to the Red Lunar Beast? Previously, Tang Zheng had already told him about the Red Lunar Beast. He had even told him the Demon Lord's description of the Red Lunar Beast. Tian Chanzi did not know the origin of the Red Lunar Beast. As for the Demon Lord's description, he had never heard of it before. Without a doubt, the Demon Lord must have heard about the origin of the Red Lunar Beast in the realm beyond heaven. Tang Jing nodded slightly. Yes, that's not a second sun, but a red moon. It's a phenomenon caused by little Yaya absorbing the essence of moonlight. I see. Tian Chanzi was dumbfounded. He was also shocked by this news. However, he thought of something and asked, but I feel that there is a very strong energy descending from the sky. Could it be the essence of the sun and moon? Tang Zheng had nothing to hide from Tian Chanzi. Therefore, he told him the truth. To be honest, this matter is too complicated. The heavenly chess has already succeeded. That is because the heavenly chess has communicated with the power of the stars in the sky. When the power of the stars descends, that is the vast energy that you feel. As for the essence of the moonlight, it is only a part of the power of the stars. Heavenly chess, the power of the stars. How do you know all this? Tian Chanzi's eyes widened again. Like a curious baby, he stared at Tang Zheng and asked. It's like this. Tang Zheng told Tian Chanzi everything that he had seen and heard today, as well as what he had done. Tian Chanzi's face immediately became serious. In the end, it became as gloomy as water. No one could figure out what he was thinking. If that's the case, this Ji Wuxiang is the one who has been hiding his strength for a long time. Tian Chanzi asked in a deep voice. Tang Zheng said thoughtfully, according to my initial judgment, he must have hidden a lot of important information from us. As for how much he has hidden, that is unknown. In addition, the power of the heavenly chess is beyond my expectations. We must pay special attention to this. Tian Chanzi nodded seriously. According to your introduction, the power of the heavenly chess is indeed very strong. Who is Ji Wuxiang to be able to create such a powerful chess game? I plan to take it one step at a time. Eventually, I will figure out the cause and effect. He still needs me now. Even if he has some ulterior motive, he won't fall out with me so quickly. Tang Zheng said after thinking for a while. That's not the same. Ji Wuxiang is not a person who plays according to common sense. We can't judge him according to normal thinking. In addition, you said that the ancient clear heaven scroll can communicate with the power of the stars. Then you must take advantage of this condition to speed up your cultivation. Tian Chanzi urged. Tang Zheng had always been suspicious about the origin of the ancient clear heaven scroll. Seeing Tian Chanzi take the initiative to mention it, he asked, Tian Chanzi, how did you discover the ancient clear heaven scroll? What is its origin? Tian Chanzi pondered, I don't know the specific origin of the ancient clear heaven scroll, but it is a bit strange. A long time ago, there was a bright light in the night sky. Many people saw this scene and thought that it was the birth of a rare treasure. So they searched the area where the light fell. In the end, Mo and I found the ancient clear heaven scroll at the same time. At that time, the ancient clear heaven scroll was glowing. It was definitely not an ordinary item. Because of this, we fought. In the end, we both lost our lives. Our souls were stored in the ancient clear heaven scroll. Tang Zheng listened and nodded. This information was more comprehensive and detailed than before. After a pause, he continued to ask, where did the ancient clear heaven scroll come from? Tian Chanzi shook his head, Mo and I have also thought about this problem. At that time, the light came from the sky, as if it came from another world. Moreover, our world has never heard of such a set of martial arts. So, I suspect that the ancient clear heaven scroll came from beyond the heavens. Beyond the heavens? Tang Jing frowned, could it be the heavens beyond the heavens? It's not impossible. Tian Chanzi nodded and methodically analyzed, however, there are millions of worlds in the universe. It doesn't necessarily come from the heavens beyond the heavens. It could come from another world. That's right. However, since the ancient clear heaven scroll can communicate with the power of the stars, it will be a great help to me. Tian Chanzi laughed and looked at Tang Jing with a strange expression, saying, you little brat, your dog shit luck is really too good. The ancient clear heaven scroll is such a high-level martial arts technique, and it actually fell into your hands. Tang Zheng laughed loudly, you can't blame me. At that time, the ancient clear heaven scroll was in your hands first. It was you who didn't discover its mysteries. Who would have thought that the ancient clear heaven scroll's reading and writing order would be like that? This is bullying an ancient person like me. Tian Chanzi helplessly rolled his eyes and mumbled. You're saying that if the ancient clear heaven scroll is really a heavenly object, then the reading and writing order of the other world would be the same as the modern world. Tang Jing analyzed. Ha! Tian Chanzi looked at Tang Jing in amazement and praised, you little brat, you can draw inferences from one example. You're really smart. I really didn't think that after fighting with the Yin demons for so many years and racking my brains to unravel the secrets of the ancient clear heaven scroll, in the end it would be you little brat. Tang Jing faintly smiled and restrained his expression. He had an idea and asked, since the ancient clear heaven scroll came from another world, and it can communicate with the power of the stars, doesn't that mean that the cultivators of the other world can freely communicate with the power of the stars? Although I have only been in contact with the power of the stars for a short time, I can feel the difference between it and the world's spiritual energy. Although the two are different forms of energy, there is no doubt that the power of the stars is of a higher level. In other words, the cultivators of the other world will be more powerful. Don't you think so? After Tian Chanzi heard this, his expression became serious. He looked at Tang Jing with a serious expression and said, "Your thoughts are very insightful. From the demons that returned from the sky beyond heaven, it can be seen that their days in the sky beyond heaven were not good. That's why they are so impatient to return. This shows that the outside world is even more dangerous. In the past, Yan Qingyi always vowed that you were the savior of the world. I was still skeptical, but now it seems that her prophecy was true. In this world, I'm afraid that you are the only one who can absorb the power of the stars to cultivate. You must not waste this huge advantage." Tang Jing bitterly smiled and said, "Yan Qingyi herself has already clarified that the word savior might be a misunderstanding. How can you still not let go of this point? I don't want to be the savior of the world, but what you said about using the power of the stars to cultivate is a good suggestion." Tian Chanzi impatiently urged, "Don't talk nonsense with me. Hurry up and go back to the house. I want to carefully see how you use the power of the stars to cultivate. It's going to be dark soon, so it's a good opportunity to use the power of the stars." "All right, as you wish." Tang Zheng was in high spirits and immediately went back to the house. When the others saw the two of them return, they hurriedly came out to greet them. They all talked at once about the strange phenomenon in the sky today. Tang Zheng waved his hand and returned to his room with Tian Chanzi. At the same time, the liveliness in the capital had just begun. The discussions in the streets and alleys had not yet subsided. Rumors were everywhere. Many people vowed that this was a sign of the end of the world. The government hurriedly refuted the rumors and used a pair of astronomical scientific knowledge to explain that this was a normal astronomical phenomenon. However, for many experts or people in power, today's strange phenomenon was definitely not simple. Many people went around asking for information, and the government even went around collecting information and conducting investigations to collect evidence. They wanted to understand what was going on. This was because they knew that even the most authoritative astronomers were unable to explain this astronomical phenomenon. As for those official statements to pacify the people, they were deceiving the people. Of course, they knew that it was fake. The bureau chief paced back and forth in his office. He had originally planned to visit other countries, but because of this incident, he had to postpone it. Seeing number one rush in, the bureau chief hurriedly asked, "Has the Lord been invited?" Chapter 1064. What? The bureau chief flew into a rage and asked sternly, "How did the Lord disappear? Wasn't he always in the capital? And you swore that he was under your surveillance. What a novel." Number one lowered his head and said angrily, "The Lord's cultivation level is high. Although we sent many people to monitor him, he still slipped away in the end." "Why did he slip away?" The bureau chief panted heavily and asked with an ashen face. Number one already had a plan and answered without hesitation, "I suspect that it has something to do with today's phenomenon." How did you think of this?" The bureau chief asked suspiciously. "The Lord is full of tricks and is very cunning. Perhaps he found some clues from this phenomenon, so he slipped away." Number one analyzed. The bureau chief pondered for a long time before saying, "What clues could there be from this phenomenon?" Number one was silent, not knowing how to answer. "Have you found out the reason for this phenomenon? And the mysterious energy that suddenly appeared in the sky above the capital, didn't many people sense it?" The bureau chief asked. Number one's expression was stern as he said, "The reason for the phenomenon might be related to the mysterious energy that suddenly appeared. This energy is too mysterious, we haven't figured it out yet." "You don't know anything. Then why did the Lord see through it? What are you all doing?" The bureau chief scolded in exasperation. Number one shrunk his neck and didn't dare to answer. The bureau chief roared in exasperation for a while, and the anger in his heart dissipated. He took a deep breath and said, what do you think this mysterious energy is? Number 1 pondered and said, many people can sense this power, but as for where it comes from and where it gathers, it's very vague. We really can't find the source, but we can be sure that this power came from the sky. Came from the sky. Yes, but it came and went quickly. Now that energy has disappeared. Will it appear again? I don't know. The bureau chief glared at number 1 and ordered, continue to monitor this energy closely and send more people to search for the Lord. Since you think that he knows something, then we have to use him as a breakthrough point. Yes, I understand. The bureau chief paused for a moment, then asked on a whim, with such a huge commotion, are there any movements from the various powers in the capital? Not yet. Perhaps no one has seen clearly what's going on. Pay close attention to the situation. The capital has been peaceful for too long, and it's going to be chaotic again. It's really an eventful time. I wonder who is stirring up trouble in the capital. The bureau chief sternly ordered. At the same time, many experts in the world turned their attention to the capital city of Huaxia. That strange phenomenon only appeared in the sky, and the power of the stars only covered this small part of the capital city. However, the news spread too quickly. By evening, many people had already found out about the scene in the capital. Experts from all over the world had gathered in the capital. Tang Zheng sat at home, circulating the ancient clear heaven scroll in an attempt to communicate with the power of the stars. The sky was already filled with stars, but Tang Zheng discovered that after trying for half a day, there was no effect. He was actually unable to communicate with the power of the stars. What was going on? Tang Zheng was extremely surprised, and his eyes widened. Tian Chanzi was puzzled and asked, what's wrong? Is it not working? Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and said inwardly, it's nothing. I'll try again. This time, he mustered all his strength and circulated the ancient clear heaven scroll. He silently recalled the feeling in the chess club and persisted for a long time. Phew! He let out a long breath and said with a miserable expression, why is it still not working? Tian Chanzi's expression suddenly changed. He stared straight at him and asked, you can't communicate with the power of the stars. Tang Zheng nodded his head helplessly. This was something he had never thought of. Back then, everything had gone smoothly in the chess club, but now, there was no movement at all. This was too illogical. Heaven Monk was silent, the expression in his eyes flickered, and after pondering for a long time, he said, you said that at that time, Ji Wuxiang used the heavenly chess to trigger the power of the stars to descend into the world, and then you communicated with the power of the stars, right? Tang Zheng understood immediately. His eyes lit up and he asked, you're saying that the power of the stars is now above the firmament, so I can't communicate with it. I can only wait for the chess set to attract the power of the stars to the world, then I can communicate with the power of the stars. Tian Chanzi looked at him approvingly. He was indeed smart. He had only said one sentence, and he had guessed it. Yes, I don't think it's possible. Tang Zheng was silent. He carefully pondered whether it made sense or not. After a long struggle, he had to admit that the older the ginger, the spicier it was. He had a unique insight and could see the essence at a glance. It was most likely the reason that Tian Chanzi mentioned. Then wasn't it too early for me to be happy? I can't communicate with the power of the stars above the ninth heaven. If that's the case, I'll be completely controlled by the chess set. Tang Zheng said dejectedly. Tian Chanzi shrugged helplessly and said, although I don't want it to be like this, the reality is so cruel. It's not my style to be controlled by others. Moreover, Ji Wuxiang hid too much of the truth. He's no longer a reliable person. I can't pin my hopes on him. Tang Zheng retorted coldly. Then what are you going to do? Tang Zheng's gaze turned and he glanced at little Yu Yu who was lying on the side. He had an idea and said, "The scarlet lunar beast is gifted and can absorb the essence of the sun and the moon. Once it absorbs the essence of the sun and the moon, can I also absorb some of it?" Tian Chanzi was slightly stunned. He didn't expect Tang Zhang's thoughts to wander so quickly. He actually thought of the scarlet lunar beast. But without a doubt, this was a good idea. It was worth a try. "You're smart." Tang Zhang smiled faintly. "I'm just trying anything when I'm in a dire situation. As for whether it will work or not, that's an unknown." "Then let's give it a try," Tian Chanzi said. "Little Yu, now circulate your energy and absorb the essence of the moon," Tang Zhang said to the scarlet lunar beast. Little Yu lazily stretched its body and walked under the window. The moonlight shone on its body. It let out a low growl and opened its small mouth. "Ee!" Tang Zhang and Tian Chanzi exclaimed at the same time. They stared at little Yu. Although it couldn't be seen with the naked eye, they could clearly feel a wave of energy descending from the sky and being absorbed into its mouth. "Look at the sky." Xiao Bai pointed at the sky outside the window and said. The two immediately turned their heads and their eyes widened. The silver moon was turning blood red at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it had completely turned into a blood moon. Blood moon! Exclamations could be heard from outside. Many people ran out of their homes and looked at this shocking scene. Capital was shaken once again. Every door opened and many people ran out into the streets. Many people who didn't see this scene during the day were once again able to experience this scene. The moon has turned blood red. This time, no one thought of the moon as the sun. Many smart people immediately thought of the scene during the day and suddenly realized, so the one during the day wasn't the sun, but the moon. Why would the moon turn blood red? The end of the world is coming. Disaster is coming soon. Some people didn't mind watching the show and started to create a commotion. The staff of the observatory were completely dumbfounded. They didn't know how to report this to their superiors. As for the official and experts' explanation during the day, it was even more absurd. Even an idiot would know that they were lying. This time, even the lies couldn't be covered up. In the Go Club, Ji Wuxiang strode into the courtyard and looked up at the blood moon in the sky. His eyes slightly narrowed into two slits, like the edge of a blade. In the night, there was a sense of chilliness that made people shudder. The blood moon appeared during the day, and now it's appeared again. What's going on? Although he was extremely intelligent, he couldn't figure out the reason. Ever since Tang Jing left, when he found out that a second sun had appeared in the sky when celestial chess was activated, he was extremely shocked. He had been racking his brains, trying to figure out the mystery behind it. However, in the end, he realized that everything was in vain. There was no record of this in the information he had. Nevertheless, he had a premonition that this was definitely not a good thing for him. He stared at the blood moon and clenched his fists. Could it be an anomaly caused by celestial chess? Celestial chess is completely under my control, so how could it cause such an anomaly? He shook his head and slightly exerted force with his legs, landing lightly on the roof of the chess club. He looked into the distance and looked in several directions in Capital City. There's an additional energy in the air. It's similar to the power of stars, but it's also slightly different. He mumbled to himself and pondered for a long time, but he couldn't figure it out. Since the blood moon has appeared, there must be some clues. I don't believe that it can escape my eyes. Two terrifying lights burst out from his eyes. With a light tap of his toes, he flew up into the sky like a leaf when a strong wind blew. Nevertheless, his movements were very light and slow, perfectly blending into the night. Normal people wouldn't be able to notice that there was a nocturnal traveler on the roof. The sound of the whistling wind brushed past his ears. His figure was elegant, and he had the demeanor of a peerless expert. If Tang Zhang and the others saw this, they would be shocked. Ji Wuxiang had fooled everyone. Not only Tang Jing and Tian Chanzi, but even the Empyrean fairy had been fooled. Back then, the Empyrean fairy tested Ji Wuxiang. At the critical moment of life and death, Ji Wuxiang didn't fight back. He didn't even reveal a single flaw. His state of mind was truly incomparable to that of a normal person. If the Empyrean fairy knew that Ji Wuxiang had deceived her under her nose, her thoughts would probably be more complicated than those of Tang Jing. After all, she was a prideful person to the bone. Chapter 1065. Little Yu Yu absorbed the moonlight essence while Tang Jing circulated the ancient clear heaven scroll. As expected, he connected with the moonlight essence and easily absorbed it into his body. His eyes lit up as he glanced at Tian Chanzi, unable to hide his joy. Tian Chanzi said happily, "You succeeded." Tang Jing nodded heavily. It seems that even though I am unable to absorb the power of the stars without the help of the heavenly chess, I can still benefit from little Yu Yu's light and absorb the moonlight essence to cultivate. This is better than nothing. Yes, but you shouldn't relax your exploration of the heavenly chess. Tian Chanzi reminded him. This meant that the path ahead was not completely blocked off. Alright, little Yu Yu, you can stop now. Tang Jing said. Little Yu Yu immediately closed her mouth, and the blood moon in the sky gradually turned back into a silver moon. At the same time, Ji Wuxiang, who was in the darkness, suddenly stopped and looked at the sky. The blood moon had disappeared, and that strange energy had also disappeared. It disappeared again, just who was causing trouble? His eyelids twitched, and the anger in his eyes grew. However, he had nowhere to vent his anger, so it was useless. All of this was caused by the heavenly chess, so in the end, I'm afraid that it's because of the heavenly chess. Should I stop the heavenly chess? Chapter 1067. Tang Zhang looked up. Above his head was the roof, so he couldn't see the stars. However, he could see that the sun was high up in the sky. He couldn't help but ask curiously, since we're absorbing the power of the stars, how do we begin when there are no stars in the daytime? Ji Wuxiang smiled and said, the stars in the sky don't disappear just because it's daytime. They're just blocked by the sunlight. They're still there. Moreover, the sun is also one of the stars. So, your worries aren't a problem. Tang Jing suddenly saw the light and angrily said, this is me being blind and thinking wrongly. If there are no other questions, let's begin. After Ji Wuxiang finished speaking, he saw that Tang Jing didn't have any objections. He nodded to the other players. The players' expressions were solemn. They looked at each other in tacit understanding. Then, they stretched out their hands. A black chess piece appeared in their hands, and they dropped it on the chessboard with a thump. After the piece was placed, Tang Jing immediately felt a mysterious energy emerge spontaneously. This energy didn't ripple from the chessboard. Instead, it descended from the sky and penetrated the roof. Tang Jing subconsciously looked up. The roof didn't change at all, but that mysterious feeling was very obvious and couldn't be shaken off. He immediately thought of Ji Wuxiang's words. He said that once the celestial chess connected with the power of the Big Dipper, he would definitely feel it from the unseen world. Ji Wuxiang's prophecy was amazing. He actually guessed correctly. He couldn't help but take a deep look at Ji Wuxiang. He found that Ji Wuxiang's expression was serious as he stared at the numerous chessboards. He was like a general commanding thousands of soldiers and horses. These chessboards were his battlefield. He had no distractions. Tang Jing also hurriedly collected his thoughts and focused all his attention on the power of the stars. Gradually, more and more power of the stars fell from the sky. Tang Jing felt as if the air was about to become viscous. It was as if it had turned into seawater. The rich energy made his heart tremble. He closed his eyes. He didn't use his eyes to see, but relied entirely on his instinctive perception. Once he closed his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose, his perception of the power of the stars would be especially obvious. Tang Jing moved his head and tried to guide the power of the stars according to Ji Wuxiang's instructions. He activated his Jin Qi and circulated his power. He pointed out a finger and a trace of Jin Qi shot out from his fingertip. It pushed the power of the stars in front of him and infused it into the corresponding point on the chessboard. Puff! When his Jin Qi collided with the power of the stars was like seawater. Under the external force, it separated on its own and did not enter the chessboard as he had expected. Ha! Tang Jing was shocked. He originally thought that it would be very smooth, but now it seemed that he had underestimated the difficulty. Once again, he concentrated and held his breath. He tried a few more times, but his true qi still couldn't move the power of the stars. What should he do? He frowned subconsciously. Ji Wuxiang looked at him and said, "Young Master Tang, did you sense the power of the stars?" Tang Jing still had his eyes closed. He nodded slightly, but the dignified look on his face did not disappear. "Young Master Tang, you don't need to worry too much. You just need to follow your heart. We believe that you will succeed." Ji Wuxiang's heart moved as he guessed Tang Jing's predicament. Tang Jing remained calm and collected. He was unwilling to admit defeat, and this time he did not rashly activate his Jin Qi. Instead, he decided to find another way. Since the power of the stars and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth were of the same origin, then would he be able to communicate with the power of the stars? This was just like how he communicated with the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In this way, he didn't need to urge his Jin Qi to move the power of the stars. He only needed to move his mind, and the power of the stars could move according to his will. Of course, this was only a beautiful wish of his. Whether or not it was possible still needed to be tested. He got rid of all distracting thoughts and entered a mysterious state as he tried to communicate with the power of the stars. This was many times more difficult than communicating with the spiritual energy of the world. This was because as long as one was a cultivator, they could communicate with the spiritual energy of the world. However, there were many differences between the power of the stars and the spiritual energy of the world. He didn't know if other people had done it before, but he had already experienced the difficulties. However, what made him depressed was that no matter how he activated his true qi, he couldn't communicate with the power of the stars. Time passed by minute and he was about to lose all hope. "I don't believe that I can't do anything when the power of the stars is right in front of me," he thought, unwilling to admit defeat. His mind moved and he remembered what the demon once said. The scarlet lunar beast relied on absorbing the essence of the moon to increase its cultivation. The essence of the moon was also a type of power of the stars. Since the scarlet lunar beast could communicate with the essence of the sun and moon, then he should bring it here. Perhaps there would be an unexpected gain. However, it was too late now. He was not prepared to give up and decided to continue trying. Over and over again, he was about to lose all hope. If it was an ordinary person, they would have given up long ago. However, Tang Jing's persistence was incomparable to ordinary people. He was able to achieve his current success not only because of his opportunities, but also because of his tenacity and indomitable character. The chess player placed another chess piece. An even more powerful power of the stars rushed down from the roof, filling up this small space. Suddenly, the ancient clear heaven scroll started to operate on its own. Tang Jing was shocked. He wanted to stop the ancient clear heaven scroll immediately. However, just as this thought appeared, he immediately stopped it. He suspiciously sensed the situation in his body. The ancient clear heaven scroll had always been very mysterious. In the past, Tian Chanzi and his enemies had tried so hard to obtain it, even at the cost of their lives. As for the origin of the ancient clear heaven scroll, even Tian Chanzi had no idea. However, in short, the ancient clear heaven scroll was not an ordinary technique. Tang Zheng had been cultivating for so long, but he had never discovered the peculiarities of the ancient clear heaven scroll. Now that he saw it start to operate on its own, he seemed to have guessed that something was going to happen. The ancient clear heaven scroll ran for 7 small circulations. Just as he was completely puzzled, there was a roar in his body. His true qi was like a surging river flowing in his meridians. In the end, it was all sucked into his yuanying. All of his meridians had become empty, without a single trace of true qi. What's going on? He was at a loss. However, before he could react, the power of the stars in all directions seemed to have found a vent and rushed into his meridians. It was like a dry desert that had encountered a storm and was instantly filled with vitality. Rumble. A loud rumbling sound came from within his meridians, as if it was the sound of a surging river, causing one's heart to surge. Tang Jing fiercely opened his eyes, which flashed with a trace of light as he raised his head to look. There was a whirlpool on the roof. It was like the clouds had been stirred up, collapsing into a whirlpool. He was right below the whirlpool. The mighty power of the stars poured down from the whirlpool and poured into his body. The rumble continued for a long time. Tang Zheng was agitated. His face was red. He was so excited that he did not know what to say. This was beyond his imagination. What exactly was going on? Why was the ancient clear heaven scroll able to communicate with the power of the stars, and even absorb the power of the stars into his body? Moreover, he had already sensed that the power of the stars, under the effect of the ancient clear heaven scroll, was rapidly transforming into true qi. This was the same as when he absorbed the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and transformed it into true qi. However, the true qi transformed from the power of the stars contained an even greater amount of energy. It was expanding his meridians little by little. His true qi was rising steadily. His body was like a big balloon that was quickly filled with true qi. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Jing with a burning gaze and asked, "Young Master Tang, what's going on?" Tang Jing did not answer because he had reached a critical moment. His true qi was rapidly rising and had reached its peak. Finally, he broke through the bottleneck in one fell swoop. Tang Zhang's eyes were covered with a layer of purple light. He could clearly feel his cultivation soar. He had risen by 2 levels and had unexpectedly reached the 6th stage yuanying. He could clearly see his yuanying face becoming clearer. His limbs were no different from a real person's. Even his meridians were sprouting little by little. This feeling was very subtle. It was as if he was creating a new life. Once he broke through, the speed at which he absorbed the power of the stars decreased by a lot. The vortex above his head also dissipated. Ji Wuxiang stared at the top of his head with a burning gaze. Then, he looked at Tang Zheng. It was obvious that he had realized something. "Young Master Tang." He gently called out again. "Don't worry. I will now draw the power of the stars into the heavenly chess. You take control of the situation." Tang Zheng lightly said. Ji Wuxiang's face was filled with excitement as he said, "I am already prepared. Young Master Tang, please make your move." Tang Zheng's finger pointed forward. This time, there was no true qi bursting out from his finger. However, the power of the stars between heaven and earth was drawn. So, the power of the stars turned into several streaks and rapidly shot towards the corresponding points on the chessboard. In an instant, the chessboard soared into the sky and enveloped everyone's heads. These streaks of light intertwined together and finally condensed into a huge chessboard in midair. The crisscrossing chessboard sparkled and emitted a strange aura. Tang Zheng could not help but raise his head to look. He was stunned by this scene. It turned out that after drawing the power of the stars into the chessboard, it was as if the chessboard had come to life. Ji Wuxiang's face was filled with excitement as he raised his head to look. His eyes flickered with an indescribable expression as he muttered to himself, "It's finally done. It's a great success." The other Go players also changed their usual wooden expressions, and their faces became lively. They all looked up at the same time, unable to take their eyes off the Go board. Gotcha! Suddenly, the chessboard in front of the players cracked and fell apart. Finally, with a few rumbles, all the chessboards turned into pieces. Tang Zheng was shocked. However, the others were not surprised. It was as if they already knew this would happen. Ha ha ha, the heavenly chess is complete. Ji Wuxiang raised his head to the sky and laughed loudly. He was different from his usual reserved self. Tang Zheng looked at him with a burning gaze. He felt that at this moment, he seemed to be a little different. However, he could not pinpoint the exact feeling. Chapter 1068. After the chessboard shattered, the chessboard and the air turned into specks of light, like the stars in the night sky, falling in all directions and disappearing into the ground. Tang Zheng looked at this scene in astonishment, not knowing what was so special about this change. On the other hand, Ji Wuxiang's expression was still excited, so Tang Zheng relaxed. It seemed that this heavenly chess had really succeeded. After experiencing what happened just now, he had a deeper understanding of the heavenly chess. The heavenly chess was not a formation, but a kind of chess game. This kind of chess game was very subtle, and Ji Wuxiang was a genius, being able to create this kind of chess game based on the wisdom of the ancients. Once the chess game was activated, it could communicate with the power of the stars in the 9 heavens, and use the power of the stars to unleash the power of the chess game to attack the enemy. Most formations required a certain amount of energy, and then a corresponding chant or formation to be effective. Among them, the energy source was the most important. The heavenly chess also had something in common, its energy source was the power of the stars. As long as the stars in the sky were not destroyed, its energy source would be endless. From this, it could be seen how powerful the heavenly chess was. There was a world of difference between this and most formations. Tang Zheng understood this point, so he had a deeper understanding of the extraordinariness of the heavenly chess, and was even more interested in the functions of the heavenly chess in the future. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Zheng meaningfully, saying, "Young Master Tang is indeed a young hero. I've racked my brains for so long, but I still haven't really succeeded. Now that young Master Tang has stepped in, it immediately succeeded. I, Ji Wuxiang, am truly impressed." Tang Zheng's gains were also great. He could already sense the power of the stars, and his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds. This kind of gain could not be described with words. However, he did not tell Ji Wuxiang this, and nodded reservedly, saying, "This is all thanks to Director Ji's genius ability. If you didn't create the heavenly chess, it would be impossible to accomplish such a feat." "Ha, you flatter me, young Master Tang. Director Ji, the heavenly chess has been successfully completed. I wonder if you have any specific ideas for the next function of the heavenly chess?" Tang Zheng asked. Ji Wuxiang pondered for a while, then said, "I've considered this matter a long time ago. Even I haven't completely understood the functions of heavenly chess, so we have to experiment step by step." "Even you haven't completely figured it out?" Tang Zheng was shocked. Even the creator of the heavenly chess was unable to understand it, then how powerful was the heavenly chess? It was simply unimaginable. Ji Wuxiang let out a long sigh and resentfully said, I'm ashamed to say that I, Ji Wuxiang, am lacking in talent and knowledge, and indeed am unable to completely understand the functions of heavenly chess. However, I believe that with young Master Tang joining us in the future, we will definitely be able to explore more functions of heavenly chess. You want me to explore heavenly chess with you in the future? Tang Zheng was surprised. Of course. Ji Wuxiang nodded heavily. The success of heavenly chess could not have been achieved without young Master Tang's help. Inviting young Master Tang to explore heavenly chess together is a logical thing to do. Actually, Tang Zheng was also filled with curiosity about heavenly chess. Since Ji Wuxiang sincerely invited him, then there was naturally no need to refuse. Thus, he gladly agreed, since Director Ji has invited me, then it would be impolite for me to refuse. Ji Wuxiang laughed loudly. I believe that with young Master Tang joining us, we will definitely be able to explore more functions of heavenly chess. It's still early, so let's begin. Let's see what functions heavenly chess has. Tang Zheng said impatiently, filled with great anticipation. Ji Wuxiang nodded and said, all right, then I'll start the heavenly chess. After speaking, Ji Wuxiang nodded at the Go players. One of the Go players walked to a corner of the hall and stopped. The others also walked to a spot and stood still. Tang Zheng looked at this scene with a strange expression. His eyebrows gradually knitted together, because he gradually saw some clues. The positions these Go players were standing in were similar to the positions on the chessboard just now. Every person's position was a key point of intersection. All Cade. At Ji Wuxiang's command, the Go players immediately moved. It was as if they had become Go pieces. With a single move on the chessboard, everyone's positions changed drastically. Whoosh! A ray of light flew up from the Go player's feet and shot into the sky. It broke through the roof and rushed into the 9 heavens. Tang Zheng hurriedly retreated from the hall and looked at the few spots of light in the sky. Under the illumination of the sun, these lights were extremely weak. An ordinary person would not be able to see them with the naked eye. Mizar. At another command, all the Go players immediately moved. Another few rays of light shot into the sky. Suddenly, Tang Zheng's pupils shrank. Because, after those rays of light disappeared into the horizon, he actually felt a star light up in the daytime sky. It was broad daylight, so how could he see starlight? He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Yu Hang, Tian Quan, but with Ji Wuxiang's command, the Go players moved to the corresponding positions. Tang Zheng once again saw the twinkling star in the sky. Moreover, the twinkling star was different each time. It was definitely not the same star. With a flash of inspiration, he immediately recalled that this celestial chess piece was connected to the Big Dipper. Thus, every time the Go players moved, the twinkling star would be the corresponding Big Dipper. The distance between the ground and the stars was an astronomical number, but Tang Zheng was able to see the corresponding star through the vast sky. Tang Zheng felt that if he were to speak of this, he would probably be treated as a lunatic. Thus, he decided not to speak of it. Even to Ji Wuxiang, he was prepared to keep his mouth shut. Ji Wuxiang naturally would not have guessed that Tang Zheng could see the twinkling stars in the distant sky. If he knew, he would definitely be shocked. Right. Besides shock, he was even more shocked. Because this had far exceeded his expectations. Seeing Tang Zheng gazing at the sky with a burning gaze, he did not say anything and directly ordered the Go players to complete 7 moves. In the past, although the Go players could complete 7 moves through meticulous practice, the power could not be compared to this. After he said the 2 words Tian Shu, he fell silent, his burning gaze fixed on the ground. Hua! Countless rays of light rose up from the ground, rushing through the roof and into the sky. If this were the middle of the night, the scene would definitely be extremely beautiful and dazzling. Ji Wuxiang's eyes burst with light, the corners of his mouth fiercely twitching as he softly muttered to himself, since the celestial chess piece has been completed, then the world has become my Go game. Using the world as a Go game, this is the true profundity of the celestial chess piece. Tang Zheng's attention was almost entirely on the rays of light that soared into the sky, so he did not hear Ji Wuxiang's soft mutterings. At the final moment, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper began to twinkle. A vast force descended from the sky, landing in the sky above the capital. In the end, it completely enveloped the capital and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, countless experts walked out of their rooms and looked up at the sky. Somehow, they had already sensed the change, but they could not tell what it was exactly. Tang Zheng's feeling was especially strong. In that instant, he actually had the impulse to lose control of his mind, but he did not know what was going on. He suddenly turned his head to stare at Ji Wuxiang, noticing his agitated expression, and said impatiently, "The celestial chess has been officially activated, and the effect is very good. It has already enveloped the entire capital and will protect this huge capital from being invaded by external enemies." Protect the entire capital? Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched wildly. This was exactly the same as a defensive formation. However, Tang Zheng understood that there was an absolute difference between this and a defensive formation. This was because the celestial chess could not only defend, but also attack. He had always had a deep impression of the celestial chess' invisible attack that the High Lord had suffered back then. Ji Wuxiang nodded heavily and said excitedly, "Yes, this is all thanks to young Master Tang. If you did not activate the celestial chess, it would only be able to protect a small part of this chess club. Now, the celestial chess can already protect the entire capital." Tang Zheng furrowed his brows and asked thoughtfully, "From what you're saying, the celestial chess's power and functions can continue to be expanded, and even protect an even larger area?" Ji Wuxiang did not hide anything and even nodded somewhat proudly. Of course. In theory, the celestial chess should be able to protect the entire world under the firmament. Tang Zheng's eyelids twitched wildly. No formation could do this. Even the formations left behind by the ancients in the 100,000 mountains were focused on the 100,000 mountains. This kind of formation was already very rare, and could even be considered a work of genius. However, compared to the celestial chess, it seemed to be petty. Although it sounded very flashy and powerful, Tang Zheng knew that the more powerful something was, the more uncertain it would be. Why did only a few large countries in this world have nuclear bombs? It was because they were great weapons of mass destruction. If everyone had them, or if some crazy small countries also had nuclear bombs, such as the neighboring country to the northeast of Huaxia, if they had nuclear bombs, it would be an indescribable threat. This was because small countries had no scruples. If they recklessly launched a nuclear bomb attack, it would cause a new world war. If that happened, the world would sink into the mire of war. By the same logic, the celestial chess was so useful, but it was controlled by a single person. This would lead to many problems. Absolute power would lead to corruption. The absolute power of the celestial chess would lead to even bigger problems. Someone would claim to be God and stand on everyone's shoulders because he had the celestial chess in his hands. If anyone dared to disobey him, they would be punished by the celestial chess. A trace of panic flashed through Tang Zheng's eyes. He realized that he had completely underestimated the celestial chess. It was as if he had fallen into an extremely ominous situation. The light in his eyes intensified as he stared at Ji Wuxiang with a burning gaze. "Director Ji, why didn't you tell me this earlier? The celestial chess is actually so powerful." Ji Wuxiang smiled and said, "I never thought that the celestial chess would be so powerful. I only realized this after activating the celestial chess just now." Tang Zheng looked at Ji Wuxiang skeptically. Ji Wuxiang's face was calm, as if he did not say anything at all. Chapter 1069. Ji Wuxiang looked at Tang Jing with a calm expression, as if his heart was magnanimous without any pretense or concealment. Especially when facing Tang Zheng's burning gaze, he was even more at ease. Tang Jing finally retracted his gaze. He didn't know if he was imagining things, but when he thought of celestial chess' great use, he felt uncomfortable. Since celestial chess is so useful, what does Boss Ji plan to do with it? Ji Wuxiang's lips curled into a faint smile, saying, "Of course it's to protect the chess club, to protect the capital from invasion." The capital is the capital of a country, who would dare to attack it? Tang Jing asked. Ji Wuxiang shook his head, saying, that might not be the case. Young Master Tang should be very clear about what happened in the Imperial City. If there was celestial chess, perhaps the Imperial City wouldn't have been destroyed. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank as he stared at Ji Wuxiang. He was also involved in the battle in the Imperial City. Didn't this mean that celestial chess was still targeting him? He felt a deep sense of danger as his aura surged, emitting a dangerous aura. Ji Wuxiang seemed to have sensed this dangerous aura and hurriedly explained, "Young Master Tang, don't misunderstand. I have no intention of targeting you. I'm just afraid that the 100 Faces Star Lord will attack the capital again. With celestial chess protection, it will be difficult for the 100 Faces Star Lord to succeed in his schemes." Celestial chess can block the 100 Faces Star Lord? Tang Jing asked in a deep voice. Ji Wuxiang's face revealed a trace of arrogance, saying proudly, "Of course. How can a mere 100 Faces Star Lord be a match for my celestial chess?" Tang Zheng's head jumped, asking, "How do you know so much about the 100 Faces Star Lord?" Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly, saying, "Young Master Tang and the 100 Faces Star Lord had a great battle in the capital. As long as one is interested, they will naturally inquire about it. I have many sources of information, so it's not difficult for me to find out some details. Although the 100 Faces Star Lord is an ancient character, his cultivation may not be very high. That's why celestial chess is more than enough to deal with him." Tang Jing knitted his brows, saying, "Then you mean that celestial chess is more than enough to deal with me?" Ji Wuxiang's expression slightly changed, shaking his head, "Young Master Tang is too serious. We are allies. Celestial chess being able to succeed is all thanks to young Master Tang. Why would celestial chess go against young Master Tang?" Tang Jing gave a cold smile and said in an unkind tone, "Is that so? But why do I feel like I'm being used?" Tang Zheng's, young master. Celestial chess is not targeted as it is because it is his heart. Of course. Its heart eyes. All celestial heart is. It because it is it. TSSS is to S saying TSS is TS. That's impossible. I understand young Master Tang's feelings towards the world, so celestial chess will definitely not make things difficult for young Master Tang. Moreover, with celestial chess help, young Master Tang can do many things, isn't that so?" Ji Wuxiang also stared at Tang Jing. Their gazes met, and their invisible auras clashed. Tang Zheng's mind was spinning rapidly, thinking about the relationship between the two as well as Ji Wuxiang's true intentions. Now, one thing was certain. Ji Wuxiang had hidden a lot of the truth from him. After he fell into Ji Wuxiang's trap, he unknowingly helped him complete celestial chess. If he had known beforehand that celestial chess was so powerful, he would have weighed the pros and cons. But there was no medicine for regret in this world. Since celestial chess had been completed, if he left now and allowed celestial chess to fall into Ji Wuxiang's hands, wouldn't that be letting him benefit for nothing? Right now, he should think of a way to control celestial chess. However, his knowledge and research on celestial chess was still too shallow, so it wasn't enough to control celestial chess. An idea came to him, and he decided to suppress the dissatisfaction in his heart. He feigned civility and said, "Since Manager G thinks highly of me, then I'll thank you. But I wonder if Manager G can teach me how to control celestial chess." Tang Zheng went straight to the point, staring at Ji Wuxiang with a burning gaze. Ji Wuxiang's expression was normal as he smiled faintly. "Young Master Tang's suggestion is very good. Celestial chess is the world's celestial chess. If I were to own it alone, then I would be monopolizing it, which isn't a good thing. Since young Master Tang is willing to take on this responsibility alone, then of course I have to express my heartfelt admiration. I, Ji Wuxiang, don't have any other merits, but I still have this bit of foresight and magnanimity. As long as young Master Tang doesn't mind, I will focus on telling young Master Tang all the details of celestial chess these few days." Tang Zheng's head trembled as he stared straight at Ji Wuxiang, as if he was doubting if he was hearing things. Ji Wuxiang actually agreed so readily, which was completely unexpected. Tang Zheng thought that the other party would refuse again and again, and that he would have to spend a lot of effort to convince him. But now it seemed that his worries were completely unnecessary. Could it be that he was measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain? Ji Wuxiang had good intentions, and he had completely misunderstood. Tang Zheng was skeptical, and he really didn't understand the situation. However, since the other party was so generous, no matter what the other party's intentions were, he would have a chance to get to know celestial chess better. This was a good thing that was hard to come by, so he naturally had no reason to refuse. Tang Zheng nodded with a solemn face, and made the final decision. "All right. Since Chief Ji is so kind, then I will agree." Ji Wuxiang said happily, "Then I really have to thank young Master Tang. With your help, we will be able to activate and complete celestial chess even faster. When the time comes, the ones who will benefit will be the people under the heavens. Everyone will definitely be grateful to young Master Tang for what you have done." Ji Wuxiang's voice was filled with passion, as if it was filled with gratitude. His words were sincere, causing people to involuntarily believe his words. Tang Zheng obviously wouldn't fall for such nonsense. Although he had many doubts in his heart, he didn't show much of a reaction on the surface. Thus, he nodded towards Ji Wuxiang and said, "Chief Ji, there is no time to lose. Let us begin now." Ji Wuxiang smiled and looked at Tang Zheng with narrowed eyes, saying, "Since it's like this, then let us begin." Tang Zheng's expression froze as he stared straight at Ji Wuxiang. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at all of the Go players present. The Go players all stood in their respective positions with solemn expressions, but there was still a trace of joy in their eyes. Tang Zheng calmed himself down, understanding that what was going to happen next was the most important thing. No matter how much work Ji Wuxiang had hidden, in the end, it could all be exposed. Thus, Tang Zheng was already prepared to pay attention to every important detail. He definitely couldn't be careless. Chapter 1070. According to Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zheng once again stood in the celestial chess. When Ji Wuxiang gave the order, all the chess players completed their corresponding moves. Then, rays of light rushed out from under their feet and intertwined in the air above everyone's heads. At the same time, an invisible force of stars descended from the sky under the bright sun and landed in the capital city, covering the entire city. Ordinary people didn't notice anything strange at all, but the experts who had already walked out of their houses and sensed the abnormality felt it more and more clearly. They used all their skills, as if they wanted to sense the abnormal situation that descended from the sky. The force of stars descended on the mortal world. Although this force was very strange, many people could still sense its existence, but they couldn't communicate with it. It was like a smell. You could smell its existence, but it was extremely difficult to find it. Tian Chanzi soared into the air and ascended into the clouds. He looked down at the capital city below, then looked up at the sky and clicked his tongue in wonder. Strange, what kind of force is this? How can it be so tyrannical? This force came from the 9 heavens, which made Enchanting's heart tremble. Especially in the unseen world, there seemed to be a big change in the capital city, and he also felt it. What caused all of this? He furrowed his brows, unable to figure it out. His gaze swept across the capital city, and he found that many experts had already climbed up to look, trying to figure out what was going on. This included the experts of several great clans and the inner palace. However, in the end, they found that all their efforts were in vain, because they couldn't guess what was going on. Everyone looked at each other. They were suspicious, but they couldn't do anything. Suddenly, someone cried out in alarm, staring straight at the sky, as if they had seen a ghost. What's going on? Someone asked, trembling. No one could answer, because this was the first time they had seen such a scene. What was going on? It turned out that 2 suns had appeared in the sky at the same time. They were bright red, like a scene from myths and legends. Because of this, not only the experts, but even the ordinary people looked up at the sky and stared at this strange scene, all of them crying out in alarm. Enchanting looked up in disbelief. He had never seen such a scene before. In ancient times, there was Hoi shooting down the sun. Could it be that this was also the case? His brain was a little blank, and he couldn't figure it out. A few minutes ago, Xiaobai and little Yu also walked out of the house and looked up at the sky. Little Yu seemed to have sensed something, and slowly closed her eyes and opened her mouth. A portion of the moonlight essence from the vast and mighty star force that descended from the sky rushed into its little mouth. A look of enjoyment appeared on its face, and even the slits of its small eyes revealed a trace of light. Ever since it was born, it had never absorbed the essence of the moonlight. Because it was in the sea, even the moonlight had a hard time reaching the deep sea. Yu's abilities were inherited innate racial talents inheritance, its S's hats was to its cultivation 2's cultivation. This time, it sensed the power of the stars descending from the sky. Its racial talent was activated, and it automatically absorbed the essence of the moonlight. In an instant, a bright red moonlight appeared in the sky, just like the sun. This made those who didn't know what was going on subconsciously think that there were 2 suns in the sky, but it was actually little Yu absorbing the moon's essence. Xiaobai looked at little Yu thoughtfully, smacking his red lips and muttering to himself, looks like little Yu's power is going to increase by leaps and bounds. Xiaobai was very smart, and he easily figured out the cause and effect, so he wasn't surprised. Instead, he stared at little Yu with a curious look. Little Yu's cultivation and power were increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the power of the scarlet lunar beast, and this was also the extraordinary part of the moon's essence. In fact, the power of the stars was a level higher than the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The cultivation speed of absorbing the power of the stars was definitely higher than that of absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. However, ordinary people couldn't do this, so they didn't know much about it. Tangjing channeled even more of the power of the stars into the heavenly chess, and the ground was already covered in a layer of sparkling light. Due to the cover of the roof, the people in the Go Club were not clear about the strange phenomenon in the sky. Tangjing had no distractions and didn't have the energy to care about other things. As he guided the power of the stars into the celestial chess, he explored the mysteries of the celestial chess. Gradually, all the movements of the celestial chess were imprinted in his mind. Light dots gathered in his mind, weaving into a net of light. Finally, little by little, they formed the shape of a chess game. Tang Zhang's head moved as he cried out in surprise, Tian Qi. Unknowingly, he had actually imprinted the celestial chess in his mind. However, he only had a rough idea of its scale now. He had only grasped its form, but had yet to comprehend its essence and true meaning. Stop! All of a sudden, Ji Wuxiang shouted, and all the chess players stopped. The power of the stars dissipated. Tang Zheng's eyes shone as he stared straight at Ji Wuxiang and asked, "Director Ji, why did you stop? It's getting late. Everyone is tired." "We'll continue another day," Ji Wuxiang said indifferently. "We should continue in one go." Tang Zheng objected. He had just finished weaving the rough structure of the celestial chess and was preparing to strike while the iron was hot. He wanted to comprehend the essence and true meaning of the celestial chess in one go. However, he was stopped by Ji Wuxiang, which made him a little unhappy. Without the cooperation of the other chess players and Ji Wuxiang, Tang Zheng wouldn't have been able to activate the celestial chess, much less comprehend the essence of it. Ji Wuxiang smiled faintly and said, "We've already gained a lot today. We need to comprehend more of what we've gained today. Therefore, we'll invite young Master Tang another day to strengthen and perfect the celestial chess together." Ji Wuxiang's tone couldn't be refuted, causing Tang Zheng to frown. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. "Then I'll take my leave first." Tang Zheng turned around and left. Ji Wuxiang's smile gradually disappeared. His expression was unfathomable as he turned to the chess players and said, "We've gained a lot this time. You'll have to properly comprehend it when you go back. Yes. In the future, the power of the celestial chess will be different. It will definitely shock the world. The era of the celestial chess is about to begin." Ji Wuxiang heavily waved his fist. His body emitted a completely different and incomparably domineering aura. If Tang Zheng saw this scene, he would definitely be very shocked. This was because he had always thought that Ji Wuxiang was weak and was just an ordinary person. However, this wasn't the truth. When Tang Zheng walked out of the chess club, the crimson moon in the sky had already disappeared without a trace. Therefore, he didn't know about the strange phenomenon in the sky. However, along the way, many people gathered in the streets and alleys. At the beginning and end of the streets and alleys, they raised their heads and stared at the sky without blinking as they discussed animatedly. From their words, Tang Zheng finally understood that there were two suns in the sky just now. He also couldn't hide his shock. However, seeing that everyone was speaking with certainty and solemnity, they definitely weren't lying. The shock in his heart could be imagined. He also couldn't help but raise his head to look. However, there was only the setting sun that was gradually setting in the west. There was no second sun. He couldn't figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. Frowning, he returned to the door. Xiao Bai rode little Yu Yu and dashed towards him. Xiao Bai couldn't wait and shouted, "Master, I have something important to tell you." Whoosh! After saying that, Xiao Bai jumped up from the back of the red lunar beast and landed directly on Tang Zheng's shoulder. It hugged his head and acted like a spoiled child. "Master, I found a secret. Do you want to hear it?" Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh. He patted its little head and asked, "What's the matter? Why are you making such a fuss?" Xiao Bai pointed at little Yu Yu on the ground as if it was presenting a treasure and shouted, "Little Yu Yu, don't move. You are the main character today. Do you know that? The main character must have an aura. Stand up straight." Little Yu Yu rolled its eyes and helplessly stretched its back like a big dog. However, it looked even more imposing. "Master, do you see anything different about little Yu Yu?" Xiao Bai deliberately asked mysteriously. "Xiao Bai, stop fooling around." Tang Zheng patted its head and said. Xiao Bai pouted and said unhappily, "How am I fooling around? I am serious. Do you see anything different about little Yu Yu?" Seeing Xiao Bai being so serious, Tang Zheng's head twitched. Could it be that it wasn't deliberately playing with him? He quickly collected his thoughts and stared at little Yu Yu. Little Yu seemed to have changed a little. Its eyes were more spirited and sharp. It had an imposing aura. Moreover, its body seemed to have grown a little longer. Although it wasn't obvious, it could still be seen if one looked carefully. What's going on? Tang Jing asked in surprise. Xiao Bai proudly said, do you want to know? Of course. Hurry up and tell me. Don't keep me in suspense. Tang Jing impatiently urged. Xiao Bai laughed and said, do you still remember what the demon lord said about the red lunar beast? Tang Jing thought for a moment and nodded, I remember. The red lunar beast has an extraordinary talent. It can absorb the essence of the moonlight and use it for itself. It can help with its cultivation. Xiao Bai repeated. Tang Jing felt that it was inconceivable and asked, of course I know this. But it's broad daylight right now. Is there a moon? Moreover, I haven't seen it absorb the essence of the moonlight before. Who said there isn't a moon? A moon can appear in broad daylight. Master, did you see that red moon in the sky? Xiao Bai shook its head and said. Red moon. Tang Jing was shocked, could it be the second sun that people were talking about? Little White curled her lips and said disdainfully, what second sun? That's because the moon has turned red and the sun and moon are shining together. This is all thanks to Little Yu. Little Yu, don't you agree? Little Yu lowered its head and called out listlessly. It could be considered to have agreed with Xiao Bai's question, but it clearly admitted to it. Chapter 1071. Yan Qingyi nodded and said, yes, I saw a new image. What image? Meteors from outer space, covering the sky and falling from the sky. It was as if thousands of stars were falling, as if the end of the world was coming. Yan Qingyi said with a serious expression. Tang Zheng's pupils shrank and said, you haven't seen this scene before. Yan Qingyi shook her head, no, this is a new image. Is there anything else? Yes, this is the sky, but the scene on the ground is different. The meteors did not destroy the earth, but a strange energy appeared in the sky, protecting everything on the ground and not being destroyed by the meteors. Yan Qingyi replied. Tang Jing frowned and said, strange energy. Could it be the celestial chess? Ji Wuxiang said that the celestial chess main function was protection. When the meteors fell, the celestial chess would definitely play a role and protect this world. Did that energy protect the entire world? Tang Jing asked. Yan Qingyi thought for a while and shook her head, saying, I don't know because the image suddenly stopped and I didn't see what came after. Tang Jing sighed inwardly, the prophecy technique actually failed at the most crucial moment. Do you think the world will really be destroyed? Yan Qingyi asked carefully. Tang Jing stared at her and asked, what do you think? With you here, it definitely won't. Before, I suspected that you weren't the savior, but now it seems that my suspicion was wrong. In the end, you will definitely be the savior. Yan Qingyi said with certainty. Tang Jing laughed involuntarily, you seem to have a lot of confidence in me. Do you know what that energy is? Tang Jing was silent for a while and shook his head, saying, I don't know. Although he had guessed that it might be because of the celestial chess, after weighing the pros and cons, he chose to remain silent for now. Yan Qingyi's eyes revealed disappointment and she angrily nodded, I suddenly prophesied the future again, I think it has something to do with the blood moon. Do you know what the blood moon is? At this time, Xiao Bai and Little Yu also came downstairs and swaggered over. Tang Zheng looked at them and shook his head again, sorry, there's no further news for now. Yan Qingyi left disappointed and Tang Zheng fell into deep thought. Tian Chanzi walked over and said, how much do you think her prophecy is reliable? Tang Zheng looked at Yan Qingyi's back and said, I also don't know, but since her prophecy technique, I don't think it's a coincidence. Oh, then you think it's related to the heavenly chess? Heaven Monk asked curiously. Tang Jing didn't say anything. It could be considered a tacit agreement. Prophecy techniques seem to have many triggering mechanisms. Once something happened, Yan Qingyi would see a new prophecy. This time, it was obviously the celestial chess's change that triggered this mechanism. As for the blood moon, it was just a side condition. Tian Chanzi guessed Tang Zheng's thoughts and nodded in agreement. Your judgment is reasonable and I agree. Since the celestial chess can cause this kind of change, and even cause meteorites to fall from the sky, it means that the celestial chess may not be harmful to us in the future, but will instead protect this world. Therefore, during this time, you must wholeheartedly perfect the celestial chess. Tang Zheng suddenly raised his head and stared at Tian Chanzi with burning eyes, asking, "Are you really not afraid that the celestial chess will cause a terrifying chain reaction?" Actually, I still believe in Yan Qingyi's prophecy a little. Maybe there really will be a day when meteorites fall from the sky. At that time, maybe the celestial chess will protect this world. Fortune and disaster are interdependent, maybe this is the truth. But back then, didn't she also predict that the demon race would descend from Mount Buzhou? This is not contradictory, there must be some unknown connection between them. Since all of this has happened, then it must be an arrangement in the unseen world. You only need to follow the prescribed order. Moreover, I see that your cultivation seems to have increased again today. This is also your opportunity, bestowed to you by the celestial chess. All the more reason you should strike while the iron is hot and use the advantages of the celestial chess as much as possible, Tian Chanzi advised earnestly. Tang Zheng muttered to himself and did not say anything. In his heart, he gradually began to believe Tian Chanzi's words. Okay, then I'll listen to you. I'll continue to go to the Celestial Chess Club tomorrow. After a long time, he nodded resolutely. Tian Chanzi looked at him approvingly and patted his shoulder, feeling very gratified. In the night, undercurrents were surging in the capital. In the inner palace, the bureau chief looked at the intelligence report in front of him and turned pale with fright. The whereabouts of the High Lord was still a mystery, but there was news of another matter. They had finally found the source of the blood moon. Speaking of which, all of this was a coincidence. If the blood moon had not appeared in the sky, this matter would not have spread. The bureau chief looked at the black and white words in front of him and praised, "What an unexpected surprise. The origin of the blood moon has been revealed just like that." He moved his gaze and read on word by word. Finally, his gaze fixed on a name. His temples twitched a few times, and a complicated expression appeared in his eyes. He clenched his teeth tightly, and after a long time, he squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, Tang Zheng. It was actually him again. He was really haunting him. This name had been lingering in his ears for a very long time. Almost every important matter had a part to play in it. Even the matter of the blood moon this time could not be separated from him. Red lunar beast, so the blood moon was caused by one of his demon beasts, the bureau chief said. This news was spread by the few employees under Du Qifeng. Originally, almost all of them were tight-lipped and did not spread what happened in the sea to the public. However, when the blood moon appeared yesterday, they immediately thought of the demon lord's description of the red lunar beast. In addition, some people with ulterior motives preached about the end of the world. Hence, out of fear, they inadvertently revealed the matter of the red lunar beast and the blood moon. Of course, many people did not believe these words and thought that it was nonsense. However, since it was said, it would naturally spread. Although it was only left in a small circle, it could not escape the investigation of the officials. Although there was no way to prove this matter, the bureau chief only took one look at this set of words and almost believed it. An indescribable look flashed in his eyes, and he raised his arm high. Bang! His fist landed on the teacup, and the teacup shattered. His fist was cut open, and blood flowed out. Seeing this, number 1 was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Quick, call the doctor." The people outside the door hurriedly went to call the doctor. However, the bureau chief did not seem to feel any pain. He gritted his teeth and said, "Go to Tang Zhang's house and find out what's so special about the red lunar beast. Be careful not to alert the enemy." "Calm down, bureau chief." Number 1 hurriedly persuaded, this news might not be true. It might just be a rumor. Actually, after the battle at the Imperial City, number 1 did not want to see Tang Zhang again. This was because Tang Zhang had left a deep impression on him. In his heart, Tang Zhang was the synonym of invincibility. This time, he was going to investigate. It was definitely not a pleasant task, but a difficult one. However, since it was an order from his superior, he had no choice but to obey. "Go quickly," the bureau chief urged. "Yes." Number 1 accepted the order helplessly. However, he was glad that the bureau chief did not ask him to do anything. Therefore, he would first investigate. There was no need to confront him directly. This might reduce the risk by a lot. Number 1 hurriedly went to Tang Zhang's house and looked at the few buildings in the night. He had already received information that this place had almost become Tang Zhang's independent kingdom. Everyone here belonged to him. However, almost everyone chose to remain silent. No one dared to jump out and criticize him. In the capital, having such a strong force was like having a fishbone stuck in his throat. No wonder the bureau chief was getting more and more disgusted with Tang Zhang. Number 1 silently thought about this. He calmed himself down and carefully tried to be as light as possible. With a whoosh, he dashed towards the villa area. Bang! Suddenly, number 1 felt as if he had hit a wall and was violently bounced back. He stood still in shock and looked up. There was nothing in front of him. There was only air. How did he get bounced back? What the hell? He cursed in confusion and took a deep breath. This must be an illusion. I can't be too nervous. I'm not here to kill Tang Zhang. I'm just here to gather information. There's nothing to be afraid of. He kept comforting himself secretly. Only then did he calm down. Once again, he gathered all his strength. With a tap of his toes, he dashed towards the villa like a fleeing rabbit. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. This time, the movement was even louder. He was bounced back and fiercely slammed into a large tree. The leaves rustled like the sound of a bell. It was especially ear-piercing in the silent night. Oh no! Number 1 thought to himself. He turned around and left. Such a big movement would definitely attract the attention of the other party. However, before he could take a step, in the darkness, more than 10 figures rushed out of the villa. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Like arrows leaving the bowstring, they quickly surrounded number 1. Number 1 had nowhere to run. Number 1 looked depressed. His reaction speed was already extremely fast, but the other party's reaction speed was even faster than his. This made him feel deeply frustrated. In the past, as an expert in the palace, he was definitely a top expert. However, the world had changed. He was no longer an expert. He could only be considered a small shrimp. This contrast almost made him collapse. It was not easy for him to adjust his mentality. Facing so many people, he really wanted to fight back and run away. However, he understood that since he was surrounded, it was almost impossible for him to escape. This was because his every move had definitely fallen into Tang Zhang's eyes. If he were to escape, it would instead be a bad thing, and he would seem to be lacking in confidence. Therefore, he coughed and stood still. He pretended to be calm as he looked at the crowd. Many people of the witch tribe looked at this uninvited guest and naturally did not have a good attitude. They asked coldly, "Who are you? How dare you trespass here?" "I'm just a passerby." Number 1 lied without blushing. He only wanted these people to treat him as a passerby and let him go. Chapter 1072. Number 1's face was flush red, and he was speechless. His thoughts had been seen through by the other party, and it was impossible for the other party to ignore him. Facing the young faces, he did not have the intention to fight back. Because, he might be able to defeat these young people, but that did not mean that he could defeat Tang Jing. If he fought back, it would only cause the situation to go out of control and become even worse. "Hurry up and tell me the truth," the witch clan member shouted. Number 1's mind raced as he helplessly said, "I'm here to look for Tang Jing." "You're looking for the Lord Envoy. What are your intentions?" Number 1 had long known that these people were from the witch clan, and was not surprised by the way the Lord Envoy addressed them. He said, "I need to tell him face to face." "All right, just you wait." The witch clan member did not make things difficult for him and sent someone back to report. Number 1 suspiciously watched as they entered and exited on their own. There was no obstruction at all, but he was bounced back by an invisible force just now. Immediately, he understood that there was definitely something strange in this area, but with his cultivation and vision, he was still unable to determine what was going on. Tang Jing's power is getting bigger and bigger, and it's getting more and more unpredictable. It's not a wise move to make Tang Jing his enemy. He pondered in his heart, but he was unable to control the chief's thoughts, so he could only sigh to himself. Not long after, the messenger returned and said coldly, "The Lord Envoy is waiting for you. Follow me." Chapter 1073. Xiao Bai did not speak the human language immediately as it was afraid of scaring them. Tang Jing had warned it repeatedly not to speak in front of strangers. "Woo woo." Little Yu growled and looked at the other party lazily. It did not take them seriously at all. Xiao Bai was even more unscrupulous. It patted little Yu's head and swaggered toward the other party. The people who came looked at each other and one of them laughed softly. It was really interesting. Number 1 walked out from the crowd with a cold expression. He knew better than the others how powerful Xiao Bai was. As for the red lunar beast, although he had not seen its strength, he knew that it was not an ordinary animal. This time, he had personally taken action with the intention of killing it with one strike. He could not miss this great opportunity. Otherwise, he would alert the enemy and there would not be such a good opportunity to catch them in the future. Xiao Bai rolled his eyes and glanced at Number 1. The corner of his mouth twitched, looking very disdainful. "Catch the red lunar beast." Number 1 gave the order and everyone rushed forward like a swarm of bees. This group of people were all experts in the palace. Although they could not be compared to Number 1, they were all experts close to the master level. However, this was only for ordinary people. In Xiao Bai's eyes, these people were no different from babies. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.